Edwards rotates in at the back. He's got the football. Bumps into traffic and escapes. Donovan Edwards racing to the end zone. Michigan flexing immediately.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Donovan Edwards, who scored the touchdown in the first possession, back in the game, and he's loose again. Edwards off and running. Welcome back, Donovan Edwards. 46 yards.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Wolverines loaded with weapons in the run game. They go after their 1,000-yard rusher, and now it's Corum who's loose. Blake Corum down the sidelines. They got an angle. He cuts it back and finally is brought down to the 20.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Penix has time, launches, touchdown! Jalen McMillan, there is a flag down.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
It's a very crafty play calls down here. Instead, they just handed this time to Cora. Steps back, breaks a tackle. Touchdown, Michigan.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Penix looks the other direction, down a seam. It's intercepted by Sanders-Still. Mikey Sanders-Still has a couple of blockers. A convoy. Michigan set up inside the 10. Mikey Sanders-Still. Biggest play of this defense tonight.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go, 365 Sports, in a day that we will have a little mixture of men's basketball because of a unique night last night in college basketball. We'll do that. We're going to hear from Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe, Boise State running back Ashton Jeanty, and also Oklahoma State running back Ollie Gordon. Those are 3 of the 5 finalists for the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award. The banquet is tonight. And of course, yesterday, Caden Salter from Liberty joined us as well. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, I'm David Smoak. We appreciate your time. And an interesting night in men's basketball, including the number 1 and number 2 ranked teams in the country going down the same night. There is nobody left that's undefeated. This from Jeff Borzello. Purdue becomes the second team in AP poll history to lose multiple games as number 1 to unranked opponents in consecutive years. The other was North Carolina in 86 and 87. Second team in AP history. Last year, Purdue lost to Rutgers and Northwestern. This year, Northwestern got them again. And last night, Nebraska blew them out, which was, they're not bad, but they're not a team you think is going to beat number 1 Purdue.
No, and then, of course, you had Houston going to Ames and finding what that's all about. And, Houston, nothing that happens to Houston, over the Big 12 season is probably going to deter people from thinking that they're a fantastic team, because they're going to be. But I do wonder, how they'll react to, this is a different thing. I mean, because it is. They're like, no offense to the American, but, Ames is the second toughest place to play in the league behind Kansas. And then, you have all these tough places to play that are just not the same kind of environment. So for Houston, who's been able to roll through seasons at, like 30-2 the last couple of years, look, they're still going to be probably the same level team, but they're not going to have that record anymore.
Yeah, it was a really big night. Fun to get college basketball kind of up and going momentum-wise. I know for some people it's already been that way since it tipped off originally, but for a lot of others like ourselves, I think we were still tied into football until there was no football. I mean, that was kind of on the front burner. Basketball, not on the back burner per se, but I guess sort of kind of until it was really their time to just be on the main stage, which college hoops is now very much on the main stage. What's that?
You're front and center, yeah.
Yep, it's on the main stage. It's front and center, yeah. So a nice win by Nebraska there. thorough win and left no doubts and got to rush the court. And then I think you're right about Houston and getting to kind of get a little taste of what the Big 12 is going to be like. Not that they're going to go out and lose multiple games necessarily, but going to Hilton Coliseum and playing a really tough Cyclones team, that's not easy for anybody. And as the number 2 team in the country, they got their taste of that last night. So welcome to the Big 12. This is part of what was always talked about with the league's depth in basketball and the number of talented teams was, how do these new teams adjust? And Houston's going to be just fine. Like, let's not get it twisted. They're going to be just fine. But, yeah, that's life in the Big 12. It's a little bit different, and it's a little bit more of a fight, and we'll see how Houston responds to that. But they'll be okay, and what a really nice win for the Cyclones.
You could lose 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10 games and still be really good in the Big 12 Conference. Tonight, Kansas plays at UCF, also OU playing at TCU. Oklahoma ranked inside the top 25. Texas got out of Mountaineerville with just enough, with Asmus, making a big play down the stretch. Baylor beat BYU, especially at the free throw line, 81-72. Also last night, we mentioned the game, obviously, with the win for Iowa State, but also Texas Tech hammered Oklahoma State, and Kansas State beat West Virginia. Texas got out of Cincinnati with a last-minute possession win. Here's a story that just is coming down. Texas gets what they want, right, when it comes to players, and not everybody, but when it comes to coaching staff. They can put together one hell of a staff. But then those guys become in demand, and you only have a handful of schools where somebody might leave UT. Well, Bo Davis, who's had a huge impact on the Texas defense, T'Vondre Sweat, also obviously with Murphy and company, is headed back to his alma mater at LSU. There's the tie-in there. The new defensive line coach, Brian Kelly, trying to remake that Tigers defensive staff.
Well, I think as much as any coach on the staff, Bo Davis probably deserves a lot of credit for the culture rebuild there, because he was the one on the famous recording that kind of had to say what needed to be. Sometimes it's hard to tell people, like, look, you don't want to be here, don't be here, or this is not how we're going to do things. But he seized a moment to get after a bad culture problem that Texas had lingering over several staffs, and was emphatic about it. And look, their defensive line was as good as anyone's in the entire country this year. And LSU, who has, Mason Smith, who's going to the NFL. They have Mekhi Wingo, who's going to the NFL. They've got NFL guys along that line. They certainly didn't play like it this year. And maybe just because they're going to continue to get those guys at LSU. Like, that's not really a problem. Brian Kelly is not going to not get those guys, but they need to, when you have Mason Smith and Mekhi Wingo on the defensive line, you need to not get gashed in the run game like they did. So what do you do to fix that problem? Well, who's the best at it right now? And, look, he's an alum here. Go get Bo Davis. That is a huge, even bigger than bringing in the defensive coordinator from Mizzou. Bringing in Bo Davis, I think, for the LSU defense to help them recapture the inherent LSU-ness of themselves is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's an LSU alum, so you start there. I mean, that's his home base. He's been there twice already. This will be his third go-around as a coach, so they know him and he knows them, and there's a tight bond there, and he'll jump right in the deep end and probably not skip a beat. I do think that if you read the various reactions to it, there's always going to be some people that are just coping. Like, you could lose – like, Sark could jump to Oklahoma, and they'd be like, we didn't like Sark. There's always going to be that, but there are – plenty of people pointing out the great job he did at Texas, but also feel like there is room to be as good, if not better, that he wasn't the end-all, be-all necessarily. Like, it's not like they're not going to be able to not develop defensive linemen. So I think it's probably somewhere in the middle of certainly it's a loss. There's no doubt about that. And Texas isn't accustomed to losing people very often, especially to a team they're about to go be in a league with. But there are areas where they can stand to be as good, or maybe improve a little bit in recruiting. And then maybe that's just coping too. But that's just some of the reaction that I've seen from Texas fans. It's not necessarily the end of the world, but there is a good mix of it that is, oh, shoot, like, did we just lose a guy to LSU? Like, really? And at a position where, I mean, that was really where we made our bread and butter this past year. That's where most of the attention came, was on that defensive line. So he's a loss. He's one of the best assistant coaches in the country, and has been, for around for a very long time now. So I think that's a tremendous get for LSU and Brian Kelly to bring him back into the fold. I saw Kirk Bowles mention that his son plays at Southeastern Louisiana, so maybe they get him to transfer on over to LSU. I don't know if that'll be the case or not, but I think the Tigers are rightfully happy to bring him home, and the Longhorns, that's a loss. But let's see who they go and get, because that will be the real tell, is who do they replace him with, because you're not guaranteed to necessarily just not skip a beat. But if you find the right guy, maybe you can. So that'll be the big thing, is who Texas goes and gets.
Exactly right. But they'll have their list of candidates will be. That means somebody else out there in college football has to wonder, even if they're paying somebody $1 million, $1.5 million, or whatever it is to be a defensive coach. So there's that. With the story about Bo Davis. And you're right, Paul, his tirade and his tongue lashing of the football team, was that the game, was that at Oklahoma State or Iowa State when he lost? Iowa State when he lost his mind, basically all but questioning their manhood, and maybe even that may have been, and I even think Sarkisian alluded to that at one point, that might have been a turning point. Because not saying that was it, but it surely got the message across.
I think there are moments across building a culture for things, right? There are different things that happen, and part of it is Steve Sarkisian coming in and kind of refocusing efforts in certain spots and getting different kind of guys in there. But the one thing that is really hard to do, especially at places like Texas, is break up entitlement, to kind of shatter that. Because what Texas's problem wasn't that they were not getting good players, is that there was the kind of, and it was probably from outside the program as well, but, if you were a player on the Texas football team, before you'd actually done anything, you felt like you'd made it. And you were standing on the shoulders of the people who came before you and not earning. What that 05 team did for Texas, was amazing. They had brought them out of just being kind of a good team for a while and brought them into greatness in this level that college athletics, they even got the television network out of that season. All these different things that happened because of that. And then you've got all these people, players that are like, oh yeah, we're just like, the Vince Young team. No, you're not. And maybe nobody had ever told them in the way that Bo Davis told them.
Sometimes what happens is you have players who join a program, from however they come in, and they forget about the hard work it took to get to where they were, of why you wanted to pick a program. It doesn't just happen at Texas. It happens everywhere.
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. That there was an entitlement issue. There probably always will be when you're, at the top of the list when it comes to the most money and the, all the various things that come with playing at Texas. It's hard to avoid those distractions, right? You're rolling around Austin. You're making good NIL probably. Things, top-tier program, top-tier facilities. I could see as a 19-year-old, 18-year-old, 20-year-old how it's easy to get distracted, and I could see when you're just kind of mowing and going on along how you can feel a little bit entitled. But, that was 2 years ago. That was almost 3 years ago now at this point, and that is what he's famous for. I think that's kind of also where some Texas fans are coming from, is all right, name something he did besides the rant. Something individually.
Well, he recruited a lot of pretty good talent.
But he didn't recruit all those guys, too.
He
doesn't get all the credit for Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy and those guys. So that's sort of where I was saying some fans are coming from. And yes, it is cope, because that's an ego blow to lose Bo Davis to LSU. At minimum, that's what it is. Mm-hmm. But I think that he helped them move past that ugly video or embarrassing video that wasn't a big deal in the long run, but it was a big deal in the moment, and it was a big deal, I think, in some ways in the turning point of changing that culture and getting to where they find themselves in the playoff a couple of years later, and with a team that did not seem to be that way really at all. I'm sure there was still plenty of ego. I'm sure that there were certain guys who had their moments, but for the most part, that was a Texas team that was locked in and was able to play with a confidence, but not a cockiness. And there was some cockiness, but you know what I mean. It wasn't just we're good just because we say we're good. It's no, you walk the walk.
Wearing this jersey.
Yeah,
yes,
you walk the walk and not just talk the talk. And I think he did play a role in that.
And Tavondre Sweat, big animal of a man, an unbelievable player, incredible player, award-winning player, probably had to get his ego checked along with all the others in that particular position room. Now, college football ended for the year, right, as far as the 2023 season on Monday night with the Michigan win against Washington. By the way, Rob Dauster of the Field of 68 will join us today at 3:25 on men's basketball. We will also, as I mentioned, hear from Jalen Milroe, Ashton Jeanty, and also we will hear from Ollie Gordon as a member of the finalist group of the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award. But let me give you a little, you can put this in your calendar. The first week of the college football season, Georgia-Clemson will play in a neutral game in Atlanta. Notre Dame at Texas A&M. And this is week one. Penn State at West Virginia, which, you know, last year West Virginia went there to start the year, had a really nice year with Neil Brown. Miami at Florida, two teams that, boy, someone's going to win that game, and they need a jolt. And then Sunday night, that really good Sunday night game. The first weekend, LSU and USC in Vegas.
Is LSU just taking that? Is that going to be their thing?
Yeah,
like that, just to do that first Sunday night game. They've done it with FSU the last 2 years.
I think it's
and
great if you can get it. Yeah,
if that can be their thing, like that would be an awesome deal for LSU. Miami and Florida is going to be really interesting because there's going to be a lot of tense fans on either side of that one about one of you. You know, it needs to leave if you don't win this game because there are. Those two coaches are in the same spot, maybe Cristobal a little bit ahead of Napier, but people want to see results. I love Notre Dame and A&M opening up the season. That they've had some classic battles in the past, especially in bowl games. Cotton Bowls back in the day. Georgia and Clemson, Atlanta, I know that it's neutral site. I mean, it'll probably be more Georgia fans, but that's not too far from Clemson either. That should be a raucous atmosphere. And we'll see. Clemson ended the year at 5 straight wins. So maybe Tyler from Spartanburg got them out of their doldrums, and we'll see how Clemson responds against what will be a very loaded Georgia team again.
It'll be a lot of fun. I think it's always nice to have huge marquee matchups on opening weekend. I like the LSU trend here lately of playing that Sunday night game to cap off that opening weekend. I like the big crossover games, and I like the fact that most of those are at actual home sites. Georgia-Clemson, with the size of that matchup, I can understand having it in Atlanta, just the locations and whatnot. That does make sense as opposed to LSU, USC just being in Las Vegas. But, I mean, I get the pull. Don't get me wrong here. But that's part of that LSU trend is playing those games. But I do like that a lot of those are going to be at home as well. So I think that's a good mix, and it makes sense for the particular matchups to have them where they are. And I very much look forward to that. I wish that was already turning around and doing that in a couple of weeks. But a lot to learn about all those teams you mentioned. We know a little bit. We know a little bit about what they're doing moving forward. But who the heck knows? I don't think necessarily people were predicting Bo Davis would be jumping to LSU today. So we'll see what they all look like by the time it rolls around. But looking at those brands, that'll be big-time money matchups, big-time TV matchups when the time comes.
I asked this question, and I'm asking this legitimately. How often, other than becoming a head coach or becoming a coordinator, if you were a position coach at Texas, or you were asked to probably move on, and there's the connection between Bo Davis. That's his alma mater at LSU, which was obviously very much a part of it. How often do they have a position coach who's one they want to keep move somewhere else?
It's not often. I mean,
and then, of course, the LSU connection probably has an incredible a part to do with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like that's probably the thing because LSU can pay what Texas can pay. And give him a raise. I mean, sure, Texas can match it, but sometimes, it is, you just go to where you want to be. But yeah, most of the time you're not going to go, like if you're the position coach at Texas, when you're leaving, you're going to be a coordinator somewhere else, right? Or maybe even a head coach somewhere else. Because look, there's not many other premier jobs you can get other than Texas, and so yeah, they don't lose people that they want to keep very often. But again, the pull of your alma mater, especially when they really need you, is is something that's probably hard to say no to.
Yeah, we've discussed the connection between Bo Davis and his alma mater. My question is, does it happen very often before? I can't think of many opportunities other than, again, going to become a head coach somewhere else, like their linebackers coach is doing now, and or someone who's going from, let's say, a defensive line coach to become a coordinator or an assistant head coach at another school. All right, so there's that. Todd McShay. Now, we're going to break here. At 4 o'clock, John Cooper, who does a great job with us from Our Lad's Guide to the NFL Draft, is going to break down, now that the season is cleared, the NFL Draft is still quite a ways down the road, but an early look at the best players at certain positions, in his opinion, who joined us a lot last year. Todd McShay released his first mock draft. There will be 50 of them. It'll get to a point where it's going to probably be, unless you're a draft like junkie. Here is his top, I think it's the top 10. Caleb Williams. Now, this is not matching up. Of course, it is matching up with who? Bears have to make a decision. You would think that's going to be easy with Justin Fields. Then you have Commanders with Drake May, Jaden Daniels at 3, Marvin Harrison, Brock Bowers. The Giants with an edge rusher in Dallas Turner from Alabama, Fashanu of Penn State, Malik Neighbors, Odunze, and Joe Alt. Those are the top 10. That could churn and change dramatically.
Yeah, the Bears, look, I think Justin Fields has played well enough to where they have a decision to make, but having the first pick in the draft and having Caleb Williams, I think might be the thing, because then they can turn off and trade Justin Fields to somebody and pick up more draft capital. And they have, 2 picks in that top 10, which if you pair Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze together, holy cow, that is something else. So, yeah, I think that's about it. How do you guys feel? You're all Commanders fans. Drake May, how do you feel about that?
It just scares me because they've always gotten the wrong guy. They've had their opportunities over and over and over again. This does seem like with the new ownership that perhaps the right people will get in the right position. But I'd take Caleb Williams in a heartbeat if he's available. I just don't want them to move up one and give up the farm like they did with RG3, even though he had dynamic rookie year. But I would take any of those first 2, the Jaden Daniels. And I'm going to say this again, Bryce Young kind of. I'm worried a little bit about the physicality of the game, but he absolutely can throw it around, move it around. But I would take the first 2 no matter which one they get.
Yeah, I mean, they need a quarterback. I'm not a big Sam Howell's the answer guy. So I think that with the new era of ownership and just whatever other newness is going to come with that, it would make sense at the top of this draft to go quarterback. I'm sure there's plenty of other arguments for why they need a tackle or why they need this or they need that. But, I think if you're really trying to hit reset, that quarterback would be a good spot to do that, especially given that you're going to have your options of everybody but one single guy. So if you feel like they're all on par and equal, then that seems like it's a pretty easy decision. Drake May's intriguing, but at the same time, it's also a franchise that's drafted countless quarterbacks who have done absolutely nothing on the next level or have been average at best as compared to their draft position. So looks good, but actually seeing it will be better. And there's a lot of buildup to come with all of this and the jockeying of the quarterbacks and how they're all going to fit. It has been pretty clear that Caleb Williams and Drake May are the top 2 guys, but I am intrigued by how that sort of race continues on throughout the process, and then how somebody like a Jaden Daniels finds himself in that mix as well. But looking forward to the draft and the build up to it. And as a Commanders fan, I'm excited about their possibilities, but I've seen them go draft Dwayne Haskins, rest in peace. But I've seen them draft, how many guys do we want to go down the list of that have just been...
he's Schuler.
Exciting for 5 seconds, and then you actually play, and it wears off pretty quickly. So I'm just hesitant to get too excited, no matter who the guy is. But I do think this is one of those should be no-lose situations, but it's an inexact science. So we'll see if new ownership can do a bit better of a job than the old one. It's not a big bar to clear, quite frankly.
When we come back, Rob Dauster on men's basketball from so far this year, including 1 and 2 going down last night. His thoughts about that and more. And this is 365 Sports. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier elite life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Offering over 50 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, bar, silver sneakers, and 10 cycling classes with morning and evening classes available. New state-of-the-art bikes that allow you to compete against yourself with a screen monitoring your speed, miles, resistance, and power. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Botch, and Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow, losing inches in weight the right way. There's a kids club included with your membership, plus sauna and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior pro Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Shop savings during the Start Something New sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Right now, get a 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab 4-wheel drive with $12,000 off MSRP or 2.9% for 72 months only at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs, too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
From the field of 68.com, Rob Dauster, one of our go-to analysts when it comes to men's basketball, joins us with Paul Craig, David Smoak on 365 Sports. Rob, what a great day to have you on after number 1 and number 2 go down, and what a night it was in men's basketball.
Yeah, it was one of those nights where it reminds you that college basketball absolutely makes zero sense, and it's the reason why we love this ridiculous sport. And the best part about it is tonight, Kansas goes on the road, number 3 team in the country. UConn goes on the road, number 4 team in the country. Tennessee goes on the road, number 5 team in the country. Number 7, North Carolina's on the road. Number 11, Oklahoma's on the road. It's only going to get crazier from here, man. And it's why this sport is so great. It's why it's so much fun, and it's why in the middle of January, you should be locked in on college basketball every single night.
Rob, Houston in their first year in the Big 12 got their first taste of a road game at Ames last night, and this is different for them. Now, are they still going to be the same kind of good, but just going to feel different because they're not going to only lose 2 games in the regular season?
Yeah, I mean, look, it is what it is when you're playing in the Big 12 versus playing in the American, right? Like Iowa State is a team that is consistently finishing in the middle of the pack of the Big 12, consistently looking at like a 10 or 11 seed, at like a 500 record in conference play. And oh, by the way, in the last 2 seasons, they've beaten an AP top 10 team 7 times. That's the middle of the pack in the Big 12. You know what that would be in the American? That would be winning league championships. That would be contending with Houston. So it's going to be a bumpy road, but that's what life is like in the Big 12. Houston's still going to be a title contender. They're still number 1 according to like all of the metrics. They still have Jamal Shedd. They still have LJ Cryer. They still have 27 guys that are 6'7" with a 7'6" wingspan that happen to be built like wrestlers that are elite athletes and happen to be the toughest guys that you're going to find on a basketball court anywhere, right? Houston is still going to be Houston. They're just going to be like 15-5 in conference instead of 19-1. It is what it is. It's the Big 12.
Rob, the only team on top of them in the rankings going into last night, Purdue going down in Lincoln, Nebraska ball, rushing the court. Your thoughts on number 1 going down and what it means for both sides?
You know, I watched that entire game. I know it was on Peacock and not everybody could see it, but I watched that entire game, and I think it said a lot more about Nebraska than it did about Purdue. There's questions that Purdue's going to have to answer on the defensive end of the floor. There are 2 losses. They've given up 180 points combined in those 2 losses. Northwestern and Nebraska combined to shoot 24 for 43 from 3. They combined in 85 minutes of basketball, have just 12 turnovers. That's not going to get it done on the defensive end of the floor. But at the same time, Boo Buie is a 5th-year senior and one of the best point guards in college basketball. Kizé Tominaga, if you guys haven't seen him play, is one of the most entertaining players in the sport and hit like 4 or 5 ridiculous threes last night. So did CJ Wilcher. At some point, you just kind of got to tip your cap to the teams that are playing at home with all of these 22 and 23-year-old veterans. It's going to happen, man. Life on the road in the power conferences in college basketball is not an easy place. And when you don't show up ready to play, which I don't think Purdue did, then you're going to take a loss. Now, the one thing that will be interesting to watch moving forward with Purdue is I thought that the way that Nebraska guarded them was really interesting. Basically, what they did was they sold out every time somebody set a ball screen with Braden Smith, Purdue's point guard, involved, and double teamed him until he threw a pass. Every time the ball touched Zach Edey's hands in the post, there were like 17 guys around him. They basically said, look, Braden Smith, Zach Edey, you guys aren't going to beat us. Anybody else on the floor, go ahead, try to beat us. We'll see what happens. We'll live with the results. But Braden Smith and Zach Edey are not going to beat us. And Nebraska found a way to win that game. So I'll be curious to see if that's something more teams do and how Purdue adjusts to that.
Rob, with the 18 conference games, a lot of conferences play 18, 28, whatever the number might be. But what would your guess be if you want to be a tournament team? What will you need to be in the Big 12 during the regular season as far as in the 18 games? Is it 10-8, 9-9, 8-10?
I think you probably have to get to 500, right? And if you get to 500, you've probably done enough to be able to get in. And that goes for most of the conferences, most of the power conferences, except for maybe the Pac-12 this year. But I think if you get to 500 in the league, you're going to have a pretty good chance to get in, because I don't think you're getting to 500 in a conference like the Big 12 without being a team that's good enough to be a tournament team. There might be teams that end up 8-10, 7-11 that get in. But the difference between this year's Big 12 and the last couple of seasons is that if you look at the bottom of the conference, I think there's more winnable games. Whereas, last year you had Hall of Famer Bob Huggins finishing last place in the Big 12, right? You just don't have that this year. UCF is not what last year's West Virginia was. So I think that it will be a little bit easier to pick up some wins at the bottom of the league than it has been in the past couple of seasons, but it's still, you still got to get 8, 9, 10 wins or something like that to even be in the conversation, to even be in the mix.
You mentioned Kansas earlier. They go on the road tonight. That was a team, getting Hunter Dickinson that kind of, really no one thought was gonna lose much this year. They've had a couple of hiccups along the way, but they're still really, really good. They got really lucky against TCU the other day on the road and got a great call. Is this a team in Kansas that can get back into the Final Four, or do you see them maybe, because they don't really score a whole lot, lagging when it comes to the postseason?
I'm torn on them. I go back and forth because on the one hand, you are giving me a team with a point guard that has already won a national championship. You are giving me a team with a head coach that has won 2 national championships. And you are giving me a team with a 5-man who is the best, outside of Zach Edey, the best player suited to playing in the style of offense that 2-time national championship head coach likes to run. You give me all of those things. Plus, oh, by the way, Kevin McCullough's been a first-team All-American this year, right? Mm-hmm. That on paper looks like a team that should be able to win a title. Now, when you put it all together, what we see on the court is it's not quite clicking the way that you would want it to click. They're elite defensively, right? You have 4 of the best defenders at their position in college basketball when it comes to DeJuan Harris, KJ Adams, Kevin McCullough, and Hunter Dickinson. But offensively, they're trying to figure out what to do in that last spot. Jamari McDowell, Johnny Furphy, and Marco Jackson have all looked like freshmen. Nick Timberlake has looked like a guy playing his first season at the high major level. One of those dudes has to step up. And if one of them can step up and consistently give you 8, 9, 10, 11 points and shoot like 36% from 3 without being a liability defensively, then I think that Kansas is going to be a team where they look a little bit better than they've been. But to date, I'm kind of buying into them because they found a way to win. They have a bunch of guys that are tough that have been through the rigors of college basketball and then understand what it takes to win a close game with Bill Self as the head coach. Then I am looking at them and saying, yeah, that is a team that's definitely going to be able to have the firepower to win 4 games in the NCAA tournament and get to a Final Four.
Scott Drew and Baylor dropped a couple of games to Michigan State and Duke back in December. Since then, they've opened up the new arena. They also got a big win over BYU last night in conference play. Rob, your early thoughts on the Bears and Yves Missy and just all that's going on in Waco right now with Scott Drew and company?
Look, they are an absolute juggernaut offensively. I don't know how you expect to guard them. When you have those 3 guards out there, with a guy like Jalen Bridges, who is an elite shooter at the 4 spot, and you have someone rolling to the rim, whether it's Yves Missy or Ajianwuna or even you play Caleb Lohner there, no matter what happens, you're going to have a ton of floor spacing and a guy rolling to the rim that can go up and catch lobs at the square, right? And that is exactly what you want to do when you run offense, and it's exactly the kind of offense that Scott Drew ran when he had the number 1 team in the country in 2020, when he won a national championship in 2021, and when he climbed all the way back up to number 1 in 2022 before the injuries kind of derailed that season. So offensively, they're elite. They're everything that you want to see this Baylor team be. They have not quite been what I thought they would be on the defensive end of the floor just yet. Part of that is that I don't think Jacoby Walter has quite gotten to the level that I thought he would be at, given his kind of physical characteristics, which is understandable. Freshmen are freshmen. They're not supposed to come in and be finished products. And as good as he's been offensively, it's been a little bit of a learning curve on the defensive end of the floor. But I thought that they would be better on that end. And to me, that's where they need to take a step forward. And I think we've seen improvements over the last couple of weeks, right? They've definitely been better than they were against Michigan State, although that's not really all that difficult to do. But if this team is going to have a chance to go back and get to another Final Four, I think that they have to get themselves to the point where they're like a top 30 team in college basketball on the defensive end of the floor. And right now they're like probably in that top 75 range. So let's get a little bit more ball pressure. Let's force a couple more turnovers. Let's make sure those rotations are right. Let's get on the defensive glass. Those things happen. Baylor certainly has the ceiling to be able to make a run, because if they're hitting their shots and they're playing the way that they want to play offensively, let's put it like this. When they play their best game offensively, I don't know if there's anybody in college basketball that can beat them. The question is whether or not you want to go all the way in on a team where all you're doing is betting on, we got to hit 45% from 3 to have a chance to win. That's a tough way to be able to win 6 straight games in the month of March.
Rob, for Baylor's had a couple of these guys in the last few years, the one and dones like Jacoby Walter is probably going to be. I mean, if he's back here next year, that's a great news for Baylor, but with the way he scores, like, let's be realistic, like, he's going to be making $10 million in the NBA next year. But for guys like him, and the way that AAU basketball and high school basketball kind of works like now, because he is such an elite scorer, have people like him ever really been asked to play defense all that much when they're coming up? So when they get to college, they might be willing, but it's the first time that, because of the style of youth basketball now, they've really never been asked to do it.
I think it depends on the situation. When you're playing in the EYBL, you're going to be playing defense. So that is a really, really good, talented club AAU travel league, right? And I think that when you're playing at the highest level of high school basketball, I think that is another situation where, like, you got to guard, because you're basically playing against college teams. You're playing against teams that are just loaded with a bunch of other D1, high D1, top 100 kind of a player. I think the biggest thing is just kind of figuring out rotations, because it's a little bit different when you get to college. You're going to be asked to be able to do a little bit more. And then the other part of it is just like the toughness angle, right? Like, the thing about freshmen now, which I think is what makes what Jacoby's doing it's so impressive, is that they're not going up against other normal college-aged kids, right? In the past, the one and dones were going up against other teams that were built with one and dones with 18, 19, and 20-year-olds on it. Now, all of these high major teams have like 23 and 24-year-old kids that are seniors, that are fifth-year seniors, that are grad transfers, that are sixth-year guys using their COVID year. And while they might be, I'm doing air quotes, like low major talents or mid-major talents, that gap between 19 and 24 is just so big when it comes to basketball, when it comes to sports, and when it comes to any athletics, really, that I think that it levels the playing field. So it becomes more difficult for these 18 and 19-year-olds to be able to deal with the toughness and the physicality of a 24-year-old putting a shoulder in your chest, right? Like, it just it takes time to adjust, and it's the natural progression of freshmen. Freshmen aren't supposed to come in and be finished products, right? Freshmen are supposed to be freshmen. There's a reason why there's a saying in coaching circles that the best thing about freshmen is that they become sophomores. Now, when you got the talent that Jacoby does, you're probably not going to become a sophomore. You're probably going to become a top 5 pick in the NBA draft, which is good. Good for him. Go make that money while you can, man. They got a short window to be able to cash in on those and you might as well do it while you can. But it's just when it comes to college basketball, I think we're seeing it with EMC a little bit too, but it's just, that's where the development needs to be for Baylor on the defensive end of the floor. And I think they can get there. I still think this is a team that is certainly a Final Four threat. I would probably put Kansas and Houston above them in the Big 12 title race, but Baylor's got as high of a ceiling as, frankly, anybody in the sport this season.
Rob, great stuff. It is an incredible website, thefield68.com, with information overload, but also with a ton of podcasts. Rob, we appreciate your time. Look forward to your analyst work with us when we can get you on this show. Thanks for your time. Have a great week.
Always a pleasure, guys.
Rob Dauster, along with Jeff Goodman, Robbie Hubble, and many others with thefield68.com. Coming up, one of the finalists for the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award tonight is Ashton Jeanty of Boise State. He will join us at 4 o'clock. John Cooper on the NFL draft early on. And this is 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, and now in downtown Waco. So 2 locations to serve you. They both have kind of different vibes. The downtown location is more of your, what are the ingredients you need to make the hot, exciting cocktails now? And the original location, more old school. They're about the craft beers and the craft bourbons, that kind of thing. But great customer service at both locales. And look, I'll just talk about craft bourbon because that's what I know the best. They have so many different kinds. I last year got at a Garrison Brothers kick and went like kind of all the way through their line of different things. Got it all at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. I'm now on looking at Tennessee whiskeys, but because I was in Tennessee, they have some of those, but they also have great stuff. If it's from Texas, believe me, they got it. They're at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Great customer service and a speedy drive-through window. It will make your head spin. The NASCAR pit crews don't move as fast as the drive-through window at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now in downtown Waco.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Tonight will be announced the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award winner. Yesterday, Caden Salter joined us from Liberty. And one of the finalists joins us now, Boise State's Ashton Jeanty joins us on 365 Sports. Ashton went to Lone Star High School and also is a star player, both what he does as a running back, running the ball, but also rushing yards and receiving yards, joins us on 365 Sports. Ashton, thank you very much for your time. What does it mean to you to be a part of at least the group of finalists, to be a part of this award from one of the most famous names in Texas, the state of Texas, in college and pro football?
Man, it's amazing, just to be talked about at, such a high standard and be selected with a bunch of other great players who've done amazing things this season, and, a Texas football legend, being Earl Campbell. It means the world to me, man. It's just an amazing thing to be nominated for. It's not many times you get nominated for an award, so it's just a great feeling.
Ashton, your team had a coaching change mid-year this year and really rallied behind each other. What was the turning point emotionally for you guys? Because it's never an easy thing to go through when you've had struggles or when you have a coaching change, but you guys responded to it as well as anybody possibly could have.
I mean, yeah. Just when Coach D came and, took over, man, he brought us new life, and we knew that we had a chance to do something special, and we had a chance to write our own story, and not let all the things that happened this season affect us. And we came together as a team, because we all loved each other and we knew the amazing things that we could do if we all came together as one.
Ashton, you're not from Texas originally, but you did play your high school football there at Lone Star High School. How has being a part of a military family kind of molded you as a man and those experiences, but also what kind of a place has the state of Texas carved out these last few years of being a part of football in this state?
Yeah, man, just being a military kid, man, just some of these different things instilled in me, such as discipline and, just being able to handle adversity, being able to handle change, being able to adapt to any environment. I mean, I've moved pretty much every 3 years as a kid in my childhood, and finally ending up in Texas. And man, Texas, it was an amazing thing, especially to play high school football in Texas, to play against some of the best competition there is, across the country. And, it's helped me tremendously in so many different ways, being a military kid, and also coming to Texas and, being in a new environment, really getting acclimated with that Texas culture.
By the way, we're talking to the Mountain West Conference Offensive Player of the Year, Ashton Jeanty from Boise State. Being a part of that community of Frisco that used to be like one stoplight many years ago, but now there seems to be like its own district. How competitive is it between all of the various schools, Ashton, when it comes to Frisco?
Man, super competitive. I mean, me playing in 5A, which is, 5A Division I, which is one of the best divisions, parts of Texas you can play in. I mean, I feel like it doesn't, unless you go 6A, it doesn't really get much better than that. I've played against a lot of great players. I've had a lot of great teammates. There's so many guys I played against that, they're playing college football right now and succeeding. And, that's just a testament to Texas football and how great it is and, how hard it is to play Texas football.
What was it like? Excuse me. What was it like the first time that you set foot on the blue turf? Is it disorienting? Is it weird before you get used to it?
Yeah, it's definitely different, man. Just being a Boise State player, man, like you got to have a different mindset when you step on to the blue. So hold on.
Ashton, are you there? We'll try to we'll juggle our time here a little bit. So Marvin Mims, who played at Oklahoma, of course, a tremendous player, played at the same school, a little bit older than Ashton, played at Lone Star High School as well in Frisco, which is a school that had Frisco High, and now there are, Garrett, like it seems to me to be about 10 or 12, 14 schools. Ashton, we lost you there for a second. We were talking about, Paul asked you about stepping on that blue field at Boise State.
Yeah. It's definitely just something different, something to get used to. But, when you step on that blue turf, it's just something different about it than stepping on any other field. You got to have a different mindset, a different attack, a different way of playing the game. I mean, there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears on that field, and just the tradition, just that being the only blue field. I mean, you can feel something special when you step out on the blue turf.
Ashton, you've already announced that you're going to be coming back to Boise. Spencer Danielson, officially the head coach moving to next season. Just can you describe sort of the electricity surrounding already the build-up for next year? Not to get too far ahead of ourselves here, but are the fans in Boise already pretty pumped up about what they've seen, but also what's coming up?
Yeah, it's going to be something tremendous. I mean, Coach D has already done a great job. I mean, this offseason, just in recruiting. But, I really do think that we have something special brewing in Boise State. And, that's what attracted other players to come here and join this program this season. And even the players who, are returning, we all have a great special connection, and we know we have a chance to do something amazing here at Boise State, and potentially with the way things are now, make the college football playoffs.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. How much now that at least there is the chance, and maybe there was, but with Cincinnati a couple of years ago or so, but the chance to be able to get an automatic bid if you guys do well enough. In fact, if you basically run the table, what does that mean to the program and group of 5 schools?
It means a lot. I mean, it's totally a different approach to the season now that if you handle business, I mean, you can be playing for the big one because regardless if you went undefeated, more times than not, you're not going to make it as a group of 5 school. But now that it's a level playing field, I mean, we're coming for everything, man. We're going to attack it as hard as we can possibly.
Ashton, I don't know if you can comment, and if you can't, that's fine. And I know we don't have much more time with you. We appreciate the time. Can you comment yet on the new quarterback on campus or about to be on campus at Boise State?
Yeah, I mean,
Malachi Nelson. Yeah.
Yes, sir. I mean, that was a big time pickup for us. I mean, he's a big time player. I mean, to be the number 1 player in your class, I mean, is a big deal. And I'm just glad that we were able to pick him up and ready to go to work with him and see what he can really do. And I have no doubt that he's going to help us win championships here.
I wanted to share something with you that you're now in the age where everyone has the internet all over the world. And when you were in Italy and they wanted to know more about football and what you did with the team in Italy against military schools, there was a time I played in Japan back in the day in the late 70s. And if you were a football player there, the chance was basically zero that anyone would ever get because you couldn't send the film, right? Unless it was the old tape. So that was pretty cool that Huddle was available. So that was really cool that they were able to see you. What was it like, the tradition of being a part of a same program that Marvin Mims came from?
I mean, amazing. I mean, guys built that program up, before I even got there. I stepped into the culture. I had to learn the culture, and then having a guy like him, show us the way, show the path, and show what it means to, play high school football at Lone Star in Texas. I mean, and, just an amazing player, and, that's what everybody sees, but what everybody doesn't see is, how great of a guy he was, how great of a role model and example he was, not only to just us players at Lone Star, but just everybody around him. And, there's plenty of players, great players that come through Lone Star, but I'm glad that, I got to be there at the same time he was.
Well, and you're one of them, though, that's now included in that pipeline. Do you think, despite wanting to go back to Boise State, and that's a great decision, did moving around all your life, like you said, every 3 or 4 years that military brats understand, did that come into play of also wanting to stay somewhere longer than just 2 or 3 years?
I mean, yeah, a little bit, definitely, because, all my life I hadn't really had the choice to, stay anywhere. Being a kid, you got to follow wherever your parents go because you depend on them. But I think for me, definitely was something. The biggest part for me was just the legacy, the impact I could leave behind here at Boise State. Potentially staying here for another year or two, depending on the way things go. But I just couldn't pass upon that opportunity.
Good luck tonight, Ashton. Congratulations on being a part of that. It's an incredible event. Thank you so much for your time. Tell Patrick Walsh we appreciate him too.
All right. Thank you.
Ashton Jeanty, Boise State running back, 1,300 plus yards rushing. Mentioned that yesterday, over almost 600 yards receiving. A dual threat, no doubt, at the running back position.
Yeah, he averaged the most all-purpose yards per game, not counting special teams. If you counted special teams, then that was Ishmael Mahdi down at Texas State, but that award is for offense only. So he is the highest as among, just offensive yardage. Ollie Gordon's right there as well with him, but he was a true dual threat. I mean, as you said, well over 1,000 yards running, over 500 yards receiving, had, 13 touchdowns on the ground. I think he had
14, yeah.
Or 14, had 5 through the air. So that's about as good as it gets as far as production from your running back, I mean, being able to be a threat all over the field for you. And, I just became a big fan of his as the season went along and got to, see sort of his background being a military guy, ending up in Texas, and then obviously having a really good career at Lone Star once he found his footing, and has turned into a really great player for Boise State. They got to replace George Halani, who was his running mate, and he's the one that really had the nice performance from him in that bowl game where it looked like, man, they were going to get UCLA in that one, and then UCLA kind of, took over there and ended up winning the game. But George Halani is going to be a missing piece, and then they lose Taylon Green to Arkansas in the transfer portal. But shoot, they went and got Malachi Nelson, and cool to be able to hear him talk about getting Malachi Nelson. They've got their head coach, after the move with Avalos there in the middle of the season or later in the season. And so, I think things are looking and shaping up to be pretty good considering all of the changeover and kind of movement there at the top. They're positioned really well, especially with a guy like him coming back.
All right. He was, again, unbelievable at putting up numbers, and he did, and he will be there tonight as one of the finalists to that award. We'll have Jalen Milroe and also Ollie Gordon around the corner today until 6. But coming up next, it's time to discuss the draft. The playoffs begin this weekend. College football over until the end of August or so. And so who are the best players at the positions, quarterback, etc.? John Cooper, our lad's guide to the NFL draft, will join us next. This, and thanks for your time today, as always, is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com, Dr. Rob Maxey and his staff, his partners, have done a fantastic job with what they can help do for you, a patient who has pain, whether it's a muscle or a ligament. If your doctor wants a better look at what is bothering you, whether it's maybe a torn rotator cuff, lumbar, it could be something, a ligament in your knee, wherever it is, the lower part of your back, an MRI machine that is state-of-the-art technology located in the Central Texas marketplace off I-35 in the southern part of Waco. $497 is all it costs, or less. That's the max, $497, and the average MRI around the country is around $1,100. So do the math. It's simple. It is easy to make that decision. If you can get to Ideal MRI, I suggest, even if it takes you a couple of hours or so, it is worth the drive. We've had viewers of this show who've driven in from Houston and Austin to get an MRI because of the cost, the convenience of IdealMRI.com.
Cars priced right, both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student-athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student-athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student-athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
It is the calendar, the date, the month, whatever changes from the college football season ending. There'll be some all-star games, etc., Senior Bowl, and eventually there'll be the draft. The NFL starting their playoffs, and I thought it would be a good time to reach out to Our Lads, John Cooper, the associate GM and senior draft analyst for Our Lads Guide to the NFL Draft. It is a fantastic publication. John, welcome back. We appreciate you. As you start to get your things going, and is it kind of the start of your juice start flowing a little bit more?
Oh, for sure. In a big week, day next week, when we find out, how many juniors are actually or underclassmen are actually going to come out.
John looked at the top 32. You guys have Jaden Daniels as the number 1 overall player. You have Caleb Williams at 7. Why Jaden jumping up when, most people just kind of have Caden or have Caleb Williams like right there at number 1, but you guys assessed it a little bit differently.
Yeah, we do. And our main rationale for that is he grades out so well at every aspect of quarterback play. He can run. He processes well. He's got good size. I mean, there really aren't a lot of flaws that we see, in him, and we think he's going to be an excellent pro quarterback.
Elsewhere, Drake May, obviously one of the other top targets. What is it about Drake May and his intangibles that stands out to you guys, given how much talk is about him currently?
We like him as a leader. We think he's we like the way he plays the game, the way he processes coverages. He does a lot of things very, very well. He's got a couple of mechanical flaws that we picked up on, and we think those things are correctable. We hope they're correctable anyway, but it's going to be, something that in the analysis people are going to really look at as to how high he's going to go. I mean, I know the media loves him. A lot of the draft analysts out there are very enamored with him. We think he's potentially a top 10 quarterback. We've got him a little lower right now. We're going to do another top 32 another week or so. And he and Caleb Williams, along with Daniels, are going to be probably, top 10 guys before it's over.
John, he might go to a team, and I know you haven't matched up really players and teams yet because there's a lot to go with that, but he might be a part of a team that already has Sam Howell as a North Carolina guy. But what would you say are the differences between May, who's highly thought of, compared to Howell coming out of college with North Carolina?
Well, I think Howell was kind of a one-read quarterback. He did a lot of things well. We worried a little bit about his ability to make all the throws coming out. He kind of liked to take off and run. It was like one read and run, as far as that goes. But he's still a quality, quarterback, good velocity on his passes. May is a little bit more of a complete player, coming out, we think. In spite of one thing, getting the ball outside the numbers and the intermediate balls sometimes has been a problem for him, and that's something that NFL teams are going to have to address. But I think with Howell was a little bit more, we thought, one-dimensional, in terms of the kind of offense that he would prosper in.
John, this is if you need a wide receiver, this is the year to go shopping for one in the draft, especially in the first round, which there could be like as many as 8 or 9 taken. Obviously Marvin Harrison and Rome Odunze and Keon Coleman, guys like that. But is this maybe the deepest wide receiver class? And last year's was really deep as well.
No question about it. I mean, this class has talent, from top to bottom, and I think you've got some top-end receivers. I mean, I think the first 2 rounds could have 14, 15, receivers in it. So it's a really good class. You've got size, those outside receivers that are big. You've got guys that can run, very good vertical threats, guys that can stretch the field, and you've got, some guys that can play in the slot too. Really good quickness, and there's some guys that really do a lot of things well. And if you need a receiver, you should be able to get one this year.
John, we know kind of what's happened with the running back position in the draft in recent years. You have Blake Corum, as it currently stands, as your top guy. Bijan, we know last year where he went, he was kind of a unicorn and an outlier. But is the running back position, has the feel or the thoughts on that and spending a high pick on that changed at all, or is that continuing to be the trend, you feel like, outside of a special player like a Bijan breaking that mold?
Yeah, I think that's still the case. I mean, Blake Corum we really like as a player more than anybody for a number of reasons. He's strong. He doesn't have that agility in traffic that you look for in the absolute complete back. He's not real big, but he's got some intangibles going for him, and, we like him a lot. He's probably not going to go in the first round, and when push comes to shove, I don't think there will be a first-round running back this year. And there's nobody that's totally that special. There's some powerful guys. There's some guys with some speed. But you don't have that blend of everything you want in a running back like you might find in a Bijan.
John, back to the quarterback position with Jaden Daniels, 6'4", will get bigger because you're going to be a part of the NFL. That the size of May. What are your thoughts about Caleb Williams' size? He does have the arm. He can run. Is there any concern about what he does when it comes to looking and reading a defense?
Well, not as much as there used to be. With guys getting in the shotgun, guys moving around more, that obviously when going back in the day when you had a 5'10", 5'11", seasoned 6'1" quarterback, you were a little worried about that, but in today's NFL, it's not as big of an issue. That said, the size is still important. If you can find a guy that's 6'4" and can move around like Daniels can, that's going to be something you're going to factor in. And Caleb Williams, has some Patrick Mahomes-like things. Everybody's looking for that. He can throw the ball from different arm slots and things of that nature. The thing that NFL coaches worry about when they're bringing a quarterback in and they want him to play right away is his ability to process. You don't have to do those kinds of things as much in many college offenses. And Caleb Williams, that's going to be something he's going to have to show that he can do, and that is a concern.
John, the process for you kind of go about this with what you have to do for our lads. Teams have their board or whatever, but there's a lot of games to be played, all-star type games. By the way, I want to say this before we get to another question, and we'll get to it in a minute. Chris Lowe of ESPN is reporting that Nick Saban has informed his football team that he is retiring.
Wow.
There was a lot of that, and I never believed it, and there was a lot of people that thought that was going to happen, but just your thoughts as a football man, that decision, and at least the story with Nick Saban.
Well, he's a great coach, obviously. He's a hard coach, somewhat hard to work for from coaches that I've known that have been on his staff. But, as far as his ability to coach, his ability to command a football team, it's unquestionable. I admired him from the fact that he coached the corners for many, many years, and even recently, he's been a hands-on coach. It's great to see that, in my mind. And so, I've always admired him for those things.
Well, he puts NFL players in the league like nobody else.
Well, no question. Alabama corners, and he coached the corners. They are extremely well drilled, and he had an old school philosophy in what he taught in terms of the fundamentals of corner play. And as an old coach myself, I really admired that. He was terrific that way.
One of those Kool-Aid McKinstry that's in the draft this year.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And Terry and Arnold.
And those two guys are potentially first-round picks, and very well coached. And you can see there's a lot of Alabama corners that are doing very well in the NFL.
John, thanks for your time, and I will be in touch. Hopefully we'll have a string of segments with you over the next 3 or 4 months leading up to the draft. Love your knowledge and analyst work. Thank you for your time.
Hey, you bet. Appreciate it, and I love being on with you.
Yeah, you too. John Cooper, our lad's scouting service, our lad's guide to the NFL draft. I got to say this, I was wrong. About a year or so ago, there were thoughts that Nick Saban was probably not going to coach much longer. You wonder, had they won the national title, maybe he walks away. They lost that game, heartbreaking fashion, to Michigan, who goes on to win it. This, I always said, I think more people just want him to retire, but my God, he is on his way out.
Well, if you were actually tracking it, then there was years of this being talked about. So after a while, it's like, yeah, you're eventually going to be right just because you'll have to be. And that's kind of where we had gotten, I feel like, over the last couple of years of like, well, he's going to retire soon. But at some point, at the same time, at his age, as he gets older and the challenges, year after year after year, at some point, when does he want to see the ray of light on the other side and just go be retired, right? Or go into a special analyst role or whatever it is that he's going to be doing. I mean, look, that's for other days to talk about, quite frankly, because just this on its own surface level is the biggest story in college football in a really long time. Nick Saban retiring, and if Chris Lowe's throwing that out there, then there's not many above him that would have that, and that you would say, what? Let's double check.
You don't go like if you're at ESPN, you don't go to Twitter with that until you're damn sure.
I double checked when I first saw that, just because I don't feel like maybe on the Crimson Tide boards there's been some smoke about it, but I don't feel like in the general population there's been much discussion outside of just the every year kind of conversation there is about Nick Saban, because at some point again you'll be right. But just a bombshell dropped by Chris Lowe here in the last 5 minutes, and I looked down and I had a triple take because I didn't think what I was reading was it couldn't be him, right? But and then Chris followed up with Saban just informed his team that he's retiring here in the last 3 minutes. So massive news on this Wednesday. The GOAT when it comes to college football coaches, and I know there will be somebody, but modern era, that's the guy, 6 national titles, multiple Heisman. You'll hear all about his accolades, but that is a bombshell of a news drop right there.
And I don't know if it affects what we might be able to have the segment with Jalen Milroe, who is landing in Tyler in the next 10 or 15, 20 minutes. I've spoken with the SID. But if we get a chance to visit with him, obviously that would be an opportunity to ask him about it and what Nick Saban has meant to him.
But by the way, during that segment, the John Cooper's graphic was up, but Smokey was hitting me like this, and my immediate thought was like, what the what are you hitting me for?
Well, Craig typed it up, and he always, if it's important, he'll type it up and then extend the how big the graphics are. Yeah.
Well, I'll just put up the size of the typing, and I turned it to show you guys. We're going on with that interview, and I was thinking, well, should I ask him about Jalen Milroe and what he saw this year? And I was like, no, I want to talk about Nick Saban retiring ourselves. Yeah. I mean, we can have plenty of guests to talk about that, and I'm sure that we will. But I'm just kind of
we'll get him next time.
Taking this all in, and I do wonder, about Jalen Milroe being at that banquet tonight. If we get the opportunity to talk to him, that'd be quite timely. If we don't, I would also kind of understand that as well, because I'm sure. I mean, who knows how he's received the news, or if he lands on that flight or whatever and gets off the plane and boom, Nick Saban. I mean, we don't know. This is all so fresh and new, but a big job just opened up, fellas. A massive job with the biggest shoes imaginable has just opened up, and man, that's sport-changing news right there.
I can't wait to hear or get a quote from him to hear what it was. You wonder if it's just one. I mean, what has he done? I mean, everything. It's not because of the loss to Michigan or whatever. It could be a combination of what college football is now. He's absolutely not going to run from anybody. Maybe there's a chance. I think he'll be great on television if that opportunity arises. Whatever he wants to do, he'll do it well, and maybe just wants to chill and be an analyst on the side. I don't know.
Let me say this. Look, Derek Jeter had like the best dating history in the history of the world, right? He was just running through, and then one day it just got to the point where I'm ready to go. I think that's kind of where Nick Saban is right now. Like, what can you do?
Yeah.
What can you do else? And you're 71 years old. You've got family. You do want to enjoy your golden years, even though you like working. But he's 71 years old. It's time. And look, it's a huge today. The other news in football, and he was a college football national championship winning coach first. With Pete Carroll is no longer to be the coach of the Seahawks anymore. So those are two legendary coaches. One that won a national championship at a Super Bowl, and then one that won 7 national titles are now hanging it up. So wild news at coaching day.
Well, the 6 I mentioned earlier, those are just with Bama, plus the one at LSU. So he ends with 7 national titles, and you're right, Pete Carroll. At one point in time, he was kind of this Saban as far as being the big name coach that everybody's like, that's the dude, Pete Carroll and USC, and then we know how that derailed pretty quickly, and who knows what that could have been. But he obviously went off and had a hell of a career in the NFL. That's not going to be for Saban at 72. He's not going to go jump into the pro waters and redo that whole thing. He, I think, learned the first time where his bread was best buttered, but yeah, that is monumental news out of complete no. Did you guys have any hints that this was?
Well, I'm going to admit it again. I know that there was, enough over the last couple of 2 or 3 years, but I still thought, I didn't think he would be Joe Paterno, and of course that ended badly. I thought that maybe he would have more of an opportunity like Osborne to walk away at the top, but obviously it's been 3 years. I'll tell you this, I love listening to him. I love the fact he's in college football. Am I stunned? Nothing would do that to me, but I am surprised, yes.
Yeah, I'm not stunned because, again, eventually he's going to have to call it a career, and you just wonder, too, with college athletics, college football being as weird as it is with trying to figure out what is going on and what's what. I'm sure that's not part of the thoughts as well, but we'll hear from him eventually, and there's a lot to take in here, a lot of ramifications, and a lot of, I'm sure, coaches on the phones right now. But yeah, this is going to have a massive domino effect.
All right, so let's think about this. And again, it's 422. This is 365 Sports. And breaking news, Nick Saban has told his team that he's retiring as the head coach with an unbelievable run at Alabama, and even he started as a head coach earlier in his career, what he did at LSU too. Names that are already out there.
We're already on
the body's not even cold yet. It's like after a championship game and there's a new, who's the preseason top 25 for the next year. All right, you want to do that?
Well, there's a new top 5 in the works right now.
All right.
But
you may have to do it live.
You
may have to do it live. You want me to throw? You want me to
throw a name?
We have to. It's what we do.
Yeah.
Dabo Sweeney, Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian. Now, Texas fans, you don't lose anybody. We just mentioned that. But I think Sark always will be indebted to Texas for giving him that extra opportunity. Dan Lanning.
Okay, you finally got to the main guy. Yeah, that's
Kalen DeBoer. And Lanning has been on record of saying that he doesn't want to go anywhere. He loves Oregon. They gave him a chance. But now we're talking, with all due respect to everybody else, Alabama.
I would think Dan Lanning's number 1 on that list. I think that's a pretty easy thing to say. And then, fill it in with every college football coach in America after that. We'll be standing in line, I think, to get that job if they have any bit of a chance at it. But, I would think Dan Lanning will now have his phone burning up from the Oregon folks, from the Alabama folks, from the agent folks, and from all of that. This is going to be crazy to see how it all unfolds and what plans maybe Alabama had in place, or how caught off guard were they. How did all of that work? We'll learn, obviously, over the coming days. But everybody with the a reporter background has pretty much confirmed this at this point. I didn't need it. Once I saw it was Chris Lowe and it was the actual handle, it's like, yeah, that's got to be right on point. And so, yeah, but now you've seen like the 15 unnecessary confirmations of the news that dropped. And so, yeah, it's real. It's not a troll job, and it's now on to already seeing the list of names. James Franklin's one you didn't throw out there. Marcus Freeman,
Kirby
Pete
Smart.
Thamel.
You got some that are you just, but yeah.
Kalen DeBoer, anybody and everybody's going to be mentioned because they're going to all want that job, you would think. I mean, maybe with the exception of a Kirby Smart, obviously. But beyond that, you could pretty much name anybody would be a candidate for that job. And, man, this is sport-changing, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, they have been a dynasty's dynasty in so many ways, and they were college football up until these last few years. I mean, it was pretty much the Bama show, and you had Clemson interject themselves and make it interesting. You had, Florida State, but, I mean, that was years ago at this point. It's pretty much been Bama, then LSU jumped in there for a second. Clemson, as I mentioned, and then here lately, Georgia's mixed it up, and then Michigan as well. So it hasn't been quite the dominant stretch, but they're still in the playoff every year, and they're still in the SEC title game every year, if not winning it like they did this past season. So, yeah, man, just kind of wrapping my head around the reality of Nick Saban actually retiring. We've talked about it so many times, but it's actually real.
Well, and I know that there is, look, he's been at Alabama for 17 years. Emory and Jack are in their early 20s, right?
Yeah.
And so they don't really remember a time where Alabama was straight up and down mediocre.
Right.
Because they were. Like, between Gene Stallings and Nick Saban, they were very up and down. I mean, they went through several different head coaches, whether David Shula or Dennis Francione and Mike Price for an hour and a half.
They waded their way out of the NCAA violation.
Yeah,
that was a big part of it in the 90s.
Yeah, so they had all these things that happened to them. So they were in the wilderness. And look, Nick Saban has had a great many assistant coaches. So you can't say like this is a dude who just there was the power behind the throne, so to speak. This is about Nick Saban.
Yeah.
Nick Saban is the X factor. So when it came down to, hey, they're really crappy about penalties this year, how are they going to figure out a way out of this? Guess who did that? Nick Saban did.
I love the videos, even if it's 10 years old. You want to know about his coaching tree? We have time to do this. You want to do this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mark D'Antonio, Scott Linehan, Derek Dooley, Josh McDaniels, Jimbo Fisher, Jason Garrett, Pat Shurmur, Will Muschamp, Mike Mularkey, Jim McElwain, Brian Polian, Dan Quinn, Kirby Smart, Adam Gase, Major Applewhite, Jeff Collins, Mario Cristobal, Lane Kiffin, Jeremy Pruitt, Billy Napier, Mike Loxley, Mel Tucker, Freddie Kitchens, Butch Jones, Steve Sarkisian, Dan Lanning, Brian Dayball, Brent Key, who's now at Georgia Tech, and then there's others on the list. Matt Eberflus is someone who played under Saban, who's now a part of the Chicago Bears.
I would not throw Brian Dayball out of that list either. I know he's got an NFL job, but it seems to be a little hot in New York right now, and
hey,
it is
he's
Alabama.
one of 32.
Yeah, but
no. You think Dayball? You're talking about as a candidate?
Yeah,
huh.
I wouldn't throw him out of the list of that either. I mean, like if you were going to take NFL names, like it would mostly be assistant coaches. Joe Judge is one I wouldn't be surprised throws his name in there.
Well, guys, Dan Lanning's got to say no first.
Yeah, exactly.
And we got to go from there. I feel like, and if you're an Oregon fan, and look, who knows? Maybe they've got somebody else. Maybe it's Dabo's lined up, and I know that Alabama fans don't. I know that it's not. That's not the thing that everybody thinks, like the layup that it was maybe years ago in people's minds that, he'll just go replace Saban. A lot's happened since then. Dabo's lost a little bit of his luster. But, I mean, I'm sure, all the names that have been bandied about for years will be looked at. But, yeah, I would think Dan Lanning's got to be the guy to say no first. And if you're Oregon, you're just like,
Jesus.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, we just finally get this dude that is going to be here for – like the long haul and be the man, and then Saban retires, and now you got to like look out of your side eye, be like, oh, geez, here we go. But I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe Lanning's happy where he is, but that's going to be, you would think, the very first guy on the list. And beyond that, I mean, just the coaching search and the recruiting ramifications. I mean, they just signed their class. What does that do? I mean, there's so many tentacles to this move, and just when you think about college football, there's no other face you put on the last 2 decades other than Nick Saban. I mean, the SEC's run of dominance, is still a situation where they have more titles than everybody, but you take out Nick Saban from that equation, and there's still multiple schools and multiple titles. But the feel of like it being dominant is not there without Nick Saban in Alabama.
He raised the bar of a conference that actually was floundering a little bit. You know, you had Tennessee,
Florida.
Hate to bring that one up, Florida with Steve Spurrier, but there were a time when they were kind of in the wilderness.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, here they come, and they were championships before Saban arrived. But here's his first year, they were 7-6. Every year after that, they won 10 games or more, and only 10 games was once. All the others were 11, 12, 13, and 14 wins. A pretty amazing run to win 6 national titles in that time.
Well, and look, Greg Sankey's mission statement of the SEC is better than anybody, like you said, is totally propped up by 7 of those titles are Alabama. Now, look, a couple of them would have been Georgia or somebody else maybe if it wasn't Alabama. 6. I'm sorry.
7 though with LSU. He's the one that kicked it off.
Yeah,
if you think about, I mean, as far as the 2000s go.
Yeah, so 7 of those are Nick Saban, but 6 with Alabama.
I forgot about that. You're right. Yeah.
So
I mean, that's when it started. If you think about it, they had Florida and Tennessee there at the end of the 90s, right? You had Alabama in the early 90s. They get hit with the NCAA violations. They kind of go away. It becomes the Nebraska show. It becomes it continues to be the Miami and Florida State show. And it's kind of those teams. In the late 90s, you get Peyton and Tennessee get in the mix. Tennessee eventually wins one. Florida wins one.
Ohio State with Tressel. Yeah.
Then eventually Ohio State in the early 2000s. I'm talking about the 90s.
Yeah, the 90s, yeah.
And so you had like Nebraska kind of carrying the flag. Then Oklahoma pops off and wins in 2000. They kind of return to their glory. But then Oklahoma, instead of having the stranglehold that they probably should have had, here comes 0-1 Miami. But then eventually 0-2 was who was 0-2? Ohio State.
Yeah.
But then 0-3, Saban and LSU beat Oklahoma, which is like the greatest team of all time.
Then
and
USC,
then the race is on.
USC for a couple of years in Texas, and then after that.
But then it's all Bama and Auburn and Florida and Georgia and all those teams. So, I mean, he kind of kicked that off in the 2000s with that big win over OU at LSU. And, I mean, this is huge.
Texas got him the last time they played back in Tuscaloosa. And then, of course, Michigan with the fourth down with Jalen Milroe on the stop to win that game
now
as well.
I also don't think that they will wind up in the wilderness like they were before. No. A, because there's no sanctions. And B, because they are what they are, they don't have to do what they were trying to do between Stallings and Saban before and going, let's get the coach from TCU. Like they're not gonna do. I'm not knocking TCU, but that's what they did with Francione, and so like they were not gonna do that. Like they'll be able to go get whoever. Like the money is it's whoever they want.
It's also a different
saying just post a sign. Interviews are today and line up.
Yeah, I mean it's also a much different era. Mm-hmm. I mean there's NIL. There's the conferences are shifting and they're different, and the whole atmosphere is a bit different from that 90s era. I mean, it's not even recognizable. That's 30 years ago, guys. Mm-hmm. It's 30 years ago. So
what was
that era he's referring to?
Oh no, absolutely.
When they were wandering in the dust 30 years ago.
Yeah,
so there's nothing similar to that at this point, other than the names and some of the conferences are the same. But much of the game on and off the fields, especially off the field, is massively different. So they're going to be just fine. And they'll be, just so interesting to watch undergoing this coaching search and kind of how they operate and what they might have already had prepared or how caught off guard they were. We'll find out. But, this is going to be amazing.
We're expecting to hear from Jalen Milroe around right now, flying into Tyler for that banquet, and we will we'll check in with the SID.
I would say the teeter-totter has tilted in the other direction on that one.
If we could get him on to talk about it, maybe take a deep breath at some point, we're not going to stop trying. By the way, again, Ollie Gordon will join us sometime in the 5 o'clock hour from Tyler as well.
What did a retired stockbroker say about coaching search?
He said, there's no coaching search.
No,
you say job is open, line up behind.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, retired stockbroker. I mean, we'll officially call it a coaching search, but it is pretty much like, who do we want? Let's go get that person. You would think that's the way that it will be, and I can only imagine the agents' phones burning up right now. I mean, just the coaches texting back and forth and just the mood in Tuscaloosa right now. But, wow, just massive news out of nowhere seemingly that leaves a huge void momentarily at a top program, and certainly will have ramifications, in many ways for some other program and across the country.
And don't think that even with the SEC loaded with who they have, and of course the incoming of both Texas and Oklahoma, you never know what might be the crack. And I'm not saying Alabama will stop winning. They will. But you never know what might be the change. They're going to win forever, and the SEC will. But you just never know sometimes how it could be like a crack on the windshield that spreads because the greatest, Nick Saban, and I will reiterate this, I get on YouTube and listen to him and watch him all of the time, whether it's breaking down X's and O's or his motivational type speeches as well.
Do you have any idea, like people watching, how great news this is for college football coaches across the board?
Every one of them got a raise today.
Exactly.
Yep.
And like, A, I don't have to ever coach against Nick Saban again, probably. And B, all I have to do is have my agent, who's probably Jimmy Sexton, just
Float
call
my
up
name
and
out
say,
there.
like, hey, Alabama's super interested in this guy. And then boom, I just got a new beach house.
Kevin Steele, of course, retired just a couple of days ago. We had that with Craig Smoak on Off the Radar. That was yesterday. And all of a sudden, Alabama's head coach, Nick Saban, is retiring.
Just saw this on Twitter. So this is from 1980. Nick Saban, who was an assistant at the time at West Virginia, has been picked by Ohio State University head coach Earl Bruce to become the defensive secondary coach on the Buckeye squad. Saban will replace Pete Carroll, who left OSU after the Rose Bowl game to become defensive coordinator at NC State.
Amazing how it just churns. We're going to come back and keep talking about this. We're 365 Sports, Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoak. The reaction in the chat room has been like the reaction we had that, wow, what does this mean? And some of the reflections on what you remember the most. His first national title in the SEC was LSU. His first national title was that Rose Bowl game against Texas when Colt McCoy and UT were really good and Alabama won it. And then since that time, the dam broke. Or not the dam, they covered it up. They were the dam as far as hoarding national titles with others along the way. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels.
It's the Start Something New sales event at Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat on the Loop in Waco, and also starting the 2024 kickoff. Outstanding year-end closeout deals last month. Huge savings on some of the most versatile and luxurious vehicles in the market now. 2023 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab with $15,000 below MSRP or 2.9% for 72 months. Or how about the 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab, $12,000 below MSRP or 2.9% for 72 months. And the Jeep deals will blow your mind. 2023 Gladiator Overland, $13,185 off MSRP. And every 2023 Gladiator gets 15% off MSRP. Amazingly hot deals include the Grand Cherokee, best-selling SUV ever, and all the 2023 models are 10% below MSRP. The 2023 Jeep Compass and Jeep Renegades are also 10% off and below MSRP. Don't wait too long. The incentives expire on January 16th, so you have a couple of weeks to do that. Inventory dwindling, time is running out, but what a great start to the year. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Penny Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Yeah, I did my job and text the SID at Alabama, and obviously the availability for Jalen Milroe. He's going to be at the banquet, and there's an open session like at 5. You would hope that he'll still be available. It's part of, the availability, but not with us, and I get it. And thanks to Josh Saxton for what he and I have been able to trade back and forth today.
For those who don't know what you're talking
He's
about.
the SID at Alabama with Nick Saban.
No, the Earl Campbell, Tyler Rose Award banquet, just the banquet that for those who are just joining us, Jalen Milroe will be there tonight to crown the best college football player from the state of Texas. He's one of the 5 finalists. And we already talked to Ashton Jeanty, the Boise State running back. We were going to talk with Jalen Milroe, but then this Nick Saban news drops. He's still expected to be at the banquet, in or out. The interview is now off because I'm sure he's wrapping his head around. And we were actually wondering, was Jalen Milroe even there when Nick Saban passed the news along to his team? Yeah. I mean, we don't know, but yeah, that's going to be very interesting to see how they handle media now with him. And I'm just thinking of all the things that are the dominoes surrounding this decision that are going to be in the news and fascinating things to follow here now over the next few days, weeks, and months, whether it's the next Alabama head coach and then the domino effect that has, but in recruiting and just the feel of college football is already different. I mean, to me, like the fact that Nick Saban's no longer involved, I know that might be a bit dramatic, but I don't think so. It's like that guy not being in the mix for the first time in forever, it feels like a different game. This was a
team that was somewhat vulnerable, and they played in the semifinals. That's how good that program is. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, because of the announcement, the transfer portal window for Alabama football players is open. Can you imagine, depending on no matter who they bring in, the attractive talent on that roster that people are already most likely just being blown up with their, hey, by the way, hey, what about us? It's part of the business. But golly.
Yeah,
and I'm not going to use this. This is not a sad moment to me. It is college football loses. It's a moment to remember his greatness. Yeah,
I mean, that's what you just said is what I'm talking about. All the ramifications of this, the recruiting side of it, the coaching side of it, the SEC race side of it. This is going to. It's like a bomb detonating, and then you have the shockwave go in every different direction, right? Or an earthquake, and the shockwave goes in every direction. I mean, that's what it's like. There was an earthquake in Tuscaloosa, Alabama just a few minutes ago with the announcement of Nick Saban retiring, and how far-reaching do those aftershocks go, or that wave of energy? I mean, it's going to be all over the Southeastern Conference and all over the rest of the country. And man, for how long and how wide-ranging are the changes that follow this is what's going to be so fascinating. And yes, that's whoever the guy is who replaces him, the staff changes now that come along with that, but up front, and that's what I said a few minutes ago, like, can you imagine the coaches texting back and forth right now across the country? As much as they're reacting to Nick Saban, they're also like, let's call Jalen Milroe. Let's go after, I don't know, every guy on this roster that Alabama has currently. And if you're an Alabama person, especially a mod or a reporter, I mean, my gosh, I can't even imagine the avalanche of things that you're going to have to now report and check and double check and figure out. And man, it's going to be, like I've kept saying, because I'm just kind of still wrapping my head around it, but it's going to be far-ranging. It's going to be fascinating, just all that follows this move, because it is that monumental. It really is. I mean, in this sport where you've had a guy be so dominant for so long and had moments where others have jumped up and knocked him off his perch like a Kirby Smart or like a Jim Harbaugh this year, he was still, like you said, in the semifinals with a team that wasn't supposed to be very good, with a quarterback that wasn't very good at the start of the, all these things, and yet there they were. And you could basically set your watch to it that every year Alabama was going to be in that dadgum 4-team tournament, and they were going to be sitting there with a shot at the national championship. At the start of every single season, they were going to be a top 5 ranked team, guaranteed every single year. And that's all we've known, guys, for 20 years. That's all we've known, basically, is just that level of dominance that you can just put them in placeholder and feel really strongly about it, no matter who the quarterback is, no matter what the depth looks like, that somehow they will find a way to be in the mix or make some noise. And they've done that, and now that's gone. And there is no matter who you go and hire, a guarantee that that's ever duplicated, because the next guy might be really good, but you're talking about the greatest to do it. And so there's big shoes to fill, and then there's shoes that are almost unfillable. And you just wonder, what are Nick Saban's? Are they unfillable because he was that good? Or is there somebody like a Dan Lanning or somebody else that can actually go and pick up the ball and take it and run with it like Nick Saban did for so many years?
There'll be a statement, you would think, from him at some point, but I can't wait to see him sit down with somebody and discuss this and start to hear from the players.
Well, look, and because of the nature, I think Craig mentioned that there's going to be people calling up players. There's going to be a sizable, they'll probably get some players too, but no matter who they hire, they're going to have a chunk of players leave, because that's just kind of how it is. Like, I came to play for Nick Saban. I didn't come to play for Steve Sarkisian or Dabo Swinney or Dan Lanning, and I'm going to go somewhere where, who was my second favorite coach out of that cycle? Well, it was Mario Cristobal or Lincoln Riley or whoever, and they might benefit that just because, that's just kind of the nature of college football now, as opposed to, you don't commit to the program, you commit to the coach.
Yeah, and what we're also going to get as a side of this as well is some of the greatest social media trolling and memes, and what I've already seen Alabama head coach Jimbo Fisher thrown out there. Saw our buddy Armstrong retweeting that or something a second ago.
Don't think that Jimbo hadn't asked.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, every coach in America, you would think, except for those that go, that's too much pressure. I'm like where I am. I'm feeling just fine here in Anytown, USA. My program's on good footing, because there will be those guys too that I don't want any part of that.
Yeah.
That process or that. Pressure, I guess, is the word I'm looking for there.
Yeah.
Man.
Here's from some Dylan Graff, who is co-founder of BadgerNotes.com. Nick Saban was so terrified to play Wisconsin on the road under the lights at Camp Randall Stadium that he chose to retire instead.
Yes, sure. Yeah, that was the final straw. You're right. He's like, no, can't go there. Man. Can't go to Camp Randall and play under those lights. No, I mean, there's going to be a lot of joking, and I think for Alabama fans, boy, oh boy, what was today like for you? I mean, even if you saw it coming, or you felt like the day was around the corner, which you had to kind of be preparing yourselves for this, right? But I'm sure there was somebody just yesterday like, Saban's going to get you and, get y'all next year and this and that. And then like 24 hours later, it's like, what does that feel like for that hardcore Alabama fan that the time has finally come, right? After all these years and all those wins and all that, like, the time has come. And I know that fan base is very confident in who they are. It's Alabama. It's not just the head coach. But, man, like I said, there's big shoes to fill, and then there's shoes that you're like, okay, how many pairs of feet can we squeeze into this thing to try to make up for what this one guy did? And you wonder if Saban's not that guy, then any job's fillable. But, man, he's leaving a big hole right now in the college football world.
Yeah. Can you imagine any list, and there's going to be odds, and there's one right here, and a list of 5 or 6 candidates that would not include Lanning, that would not include Dabo, that would not include Sarkisian? You at least, again, Texas loves the guy and what he's done, but at least include him Kalen DeBoer, and Paul, what about Mike Norvell?
Oh, I think he's going to get called. I mean, he's young and exciting. I don't think he might if he doesn't get, they don't get Lanning, but I don't think they're going to get down to Norvell. He's only done it for a year. I think they're going to need to, and so is Lanning's only done it for 2. So, but he's an SEC guy. He's a Saban guy. He's in the tree, like you said. I will say this. For Oregon, like if they lose another guy to another job, like this is why they probably haven't gotten over that line yet of, they're just standing on the doorstep of being a super elite program because for whatever reason, they make coaching hires that other people want to make a year later, so if it would and look, it's gotten progressively better. They lost Willie Taggart and hired Mario Cristobal. They lost Mario Cristobal and hired Dan Lanning, and they could potentially lose Dan Lanning, and we'll see who they hire. But, man, eventually you got to start going, what's wrong with this place?
Tim Brando, to say that Chris Lowe is in Nick's circle of trust would be an understatement.
Yeah, I mean, all you had to do was verify that it was the right name. Yep. And then you knew, boom, take it to the bank.
You don't want to get an Ian Rappaport.
Right. Yeah. I mean, as long as it wasn't C-Low, and then you snuck in some other random L that looks like an I or what. I mean, that's all you had to do was double check that, and you're like, that's the real Chris Lowe. Boom, take it to the bank. Yep, Saban's retiring, no doubt about it. Yep, that was a great scoop. That's an all-time scoop right there to be the one to announce Nick Saban's retirement. So congrats to Chris Lowe on that.
Garrett, do you have a couple of tweets you want to share with us? I know you sent a couple of texts to us, but I'm not sure. Is there anything else that you have that you've grabbed?
No, Paul had sent this. Logan Diggs transferred and committed to Ole Miss. So
I mostly just sent that to see Garrett's reaction. But
is that an LSU kid?
Yeah.
Oh,
we lost your mic there for a second.
That's not very nice, Paul.
He's gone. He's all right.
That's not very nice. So, I love breaking news, but this is one I didn't have on my bingo card today with Nick Saban.
Well, I mean, here we are. So it's reality. He's going
Let's go. Yeah,
go retire, and I'm sure there will be some. I would assume that if he would want one, there would be a very high-paying, special advisor to the president type of a forever role for him, or something along those lines. Where, I mean the retirement to what level he retires or has an advisory role at the school or something along those lines. I mean, you wouldn't be surprised to see that because those kind of cush gigs come around for legendary coaches. But, I mean, maybe he just rides up. I mean, I don't know. TV, he's done a lot of TV. I could see that for him. But, that's all going to come in time. And just like the head coaching announcement, we're now going to have a good bit of time, you would think, to talk about what that ends up looking like. But, I'm still just kind of taking it all in because – I almost hate to start moving on already because this is such a big deal. I want to kind of sit in it that, wow, it's really happening and not just zoom on by and go, all right, on to the next thing. Saban's gone. All right, who's next? But that's also part of the process is, all right, as I saw somebody point out, Alabama's websites are about to have the greatest coaching hot boards that you've ever seen in your life. There'll never be a hot board, a real one, that's as star-studded as the one that you could line up right now for the Alabama head coaching job. That's realistic as well.
And Paxton, you've asked this, and we've discussed it. There's no question. You would think Sarkisian will end up and stay in Texas because when they want to keep somebody, we mentioned this, they do. But Sarkisian will probably get an extra few million out of this, like about 8 to 12 other names who could be attached to this particular coaching search.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll kick the tires on a guy like Sark, but again, I don't know what Alabama has in mind. I mean, were they caught off guard by this somewhat? Did they have all of their ducks in a row and they were just waiting for him to say, all right, green light, boom, coaching search starts? What was the setup? A few years ago, if you just took Twitter's opinion or a college football board, oh, well, Dabo's the guy, right? Dabo would be sort of the layup guy when Clemson was winning the national titles. And in the last couple of years, I think that's cooled off as Lanning has surged, and then as Dabo's kind of annoyed a bit and shown that he's not as adaptable as maybe you need to be, and certainly you will need to be at Alabama. That whole, we'll just not really dabble in it. That's not going to fly at Alabama, nor would the boosters want it to be that way. They're going to want you to go out and get the best guys. So you just wonder how much that fits Dabo still at this point. But, I mean, anybody and everybody is realistic for Alabama to go after. And, yeah, that includes Sark. That includes Dan Lanning. That includes anybody you want to throw out there. I don't think anything's necessarily off limits as far as them expressing interest. Now, would he want the job? That's another story entirely. And he's got one of the top 5 jobs in the country. So Sark could look at it and say, hey, we got to the semifinals. We're going to have to rebuild. They lost a lot of talent, but I like it in Austin. He might be perfectly fine where he is. He's certainly making enough money. But for somebody out there, that job's going to be enticing. And, we just wonder now who that will be. But Sark will be on that list, I would think, no doubt about it.
This is from somebody that has become really close with him when it comes to promotions and advertising, etc. From Deion Sanders, college football just lost the GOAT to retirement. Mm-hmm. I knew it would happen one day soon, but not this soon. The game has changed so much that it's chased the GOAT away. College football's let's hold up our mirrors and say honestly what you see. So maybe they have some discussions about the way the game and the sport is changing, and that Deion putting that in his tweet just now from primetime.
Yeah, I'm sure they've had conversations, filming commercials together and just seeing each other at conventions and whatnot. But, yeah, I think that they've, on the surface, from what people like us are able to see, they've always seemed like they had a pretty chummy friendship, and it seemed like a pretty cool little tandem. And, I'm sure that's a topic that's been broached. At Deion, if you've got that time to spend with a guy like Saban, I'm sure you've asked him, what do you think of the current era, and how long do you plan on doing this? Because Deion's just getting into it. I mean, he's just starting out if you think about it. So he's young in the process compared to Saban, and so, I'm sure he's picked his brain on those topics, and wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if at 72 years old you've won basically all you can win and you're just tired of it. But also, if you needed a little bit of a nudge, well, here's NIL, here's realignment, here's
the transfer
portal. So if you needed a little bit of a push across that line into the other side of not coaching anymore, I don't think that there's any question. There's a lot of things that could have been the one to nudge you over, or a combination of things, certainly. And also, just it's time. It's time. And
72
now,
years old, but I always thought he was much younger than that, the way he went about his business. The AFCA convention in Nashville wrapping up today.
Man,
so you had the national title on Monday. The AFCA with thousands of coaches in it looking for jobs, or also looking to hire people, or just there. Talk about a buzz at the Gaylord Opryland in Nashville. And now this story with Nick Saban. When we come back, we'll have the 5 o'clock hour more, and we'll get into the chat room. What do you remember most about Nick Saban and his career, and specifically at Alabama? What do you remember most about him, and your thoughts about today's news to get your feedback too? And this is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac. They are the people that you can count on, and have been the people you can count on for over 2 decades here in the Central Texas area. I haven't been around that long, but I've needed to head on over to Richard Carr to get my vehicle worked on, and I can attest to their great customer service, to the great people over at the dealership, and their great work on my vehicle. I will be going back at some point, hopefully not too soon, though. I'm not trying to necessarily buy a car, and I definitely don't want to get my car worked on, but if I do have to do that, or you're a person that's in that situation, then head on over to Richard Carr. And right now, don't get the A truck, get the truck, which would be a GMC Sierra from Richard Carr, with power and strength and a stunning interior. A GMC Sierra is a truck that has it all, and right now there is hundreds of trucks on the lot ready to move at a great price. You can save thousands in holiday savings on cars and trucks happening now, and with a trade, qualified buyers can save $10,000 on the GMC Sierra SLT Crew Cab, plus in addition to that $10K if you trade in your vehicle. For qualified buyers, military and first responders also receive an additional $500 in savings. So contact the dealership to get more information on those very nice and very safe and secure and loaded up GMC Sierra trucks. Also, if you're trading in your vehicle and you're not looking for a GMC Sierra, they've got other options for you as well, including a lot full of quality pre-owned cars and trucks in stock. 100 used cars and trucks on the lot to choose from, all of them fully inspected, 172-point inspection, plus the Richard Carr seal of approval and a financing goal over at Richard Carr that is 100% credit approval. They say yes when others say no. So check out the company that has been in business, doing great business here in Central Texas for the last 24 years. Richard Carr has built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
It's the Start Something New sales event at Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat on the Loop in Waco, and also starting the 2024 kickoff. Outstanding year-end closeout deals last month. Huge savings on some of the most versatile and luxurious vehicles in the market now. 2023 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab with $15,000 below MSRP or 2.9% for 72 months. Or how about the 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab, $12,000 below MSRP or 2.9% for 72 months. And the Jeep deals will blow your mind. 2023 Gladiator Overland, $13,185 off MSRP, and every 2023 Gladiator gets 15% off MSRP. Amazingly hot deals include the Grand Cherokee, best-selling SUV ever, and all the 2023 models are 10% below MSRP. The 2023 Jeep Compass and Jeep Renegades are also 10% off and below MSRP. Don't wait too long. The incentives expire on January 16th, so you have a couple of weeks to do that. Inventory dwindling, time is running out, but what a great start to the year. Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and Equal Housing Lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
Here we go, 365 Sports. What a day. I have at times not joked about this, but mentioned just wait a little bit and something big in college football is going to happen because of the constant churning of realignment, the constant deal when it comes to the portal, NIL, recruiting, coaching changes. But then you have Nick Saban making the announcement, telling his team earlier this afternoon. Chris Lowe, ESPN, had it first that Nick Saban at 72 is walking out and retiring as the head football coach at Alabama. Garrett has a couple of graphics here putting up from the Twitter feed, I believe. One, how many first-round picks, since he went to Alabama, what was that, 2007, I guess it was. 44 first-round picks, more first-round picks in his time at Alabama in Tuscaloosa than how many losses he suffered. And believe me, the 29 losses for him he suffered at Alabama.
You know, his 29 losses at Alabama, too, and probably the ones at LSU are like this as well, and Michigan State. If you look at it, you know how, like, Nolan Ryan had the 7 no-hitters, but he also had, like, 18 one-hitters. Mm-hmm. Like he had, or
Nicholas
something.
On the majors.
Yeah, it's like all those, his 29 losses, now they're still losses, but Alabama never got blown out. Like, it was never like he was always, I mean, that's how great he was in that you went, like, to beat Alabama, you had to play all 60 minutes. You were never, like, and I'm sure there's somebody like, oh, well, one time we were up by this much and we put in our backup quarterback. Your backup quarterback was only coming in against Alabama when Nick Saban's defense knocked him out of the game. I mean, like, that's how dominant they were in that. At no point did you ever think you were going to coast in a game against them or have that opportunity to, even in years where they weren't as good as they were the previous year, they were still great. I mean, they were so loaded and so dominant. And, you know, the way that he was able to keep that going, especially, you know, look, lately, obviously, you know, Georgia came along and Kirby Smart's younger and stronger, I guess, and maybe took their crown a little bit. But guess what? When he had the opportunity to beat Kirby Smart this year, what did he do? He did it. You know, and
there's that thing again about no one wins 3 in a row, and you would think that was the setup there, and Saban and Alabama ended that dream as well. There's one other note. Garrett, do you have one more? Here's Pete Thamel. The buyouts for potential Alabama head coach candidates. These are just names that you would think are obvious. The Dan Lanning buyout is $20 million. DeBoer, $12 million. Dabo, $7.5 million. And Mike Norvell, Florida State, at $4 million.
You just keep your happy ass out of Tallahassee, Florida, Alabama.
And Pete Thamel updated the tweet to add James Franklin in there, which a bunch of Alabama fans have already revolted and said that's BS. But he threw in James Franklin's name. I don't know if he just forgot to include it the first time around and said $6 million. So he would be 4th on that list, but I'm not sure if he'd be 4th on Alabama's coaching list. But for what it's worth, James Franklin's $6 million as well. So, yeah, that $20 million. I mean, I know Bama probably feels like you can pay whatever you want to pay. That's a pretty lofty price tag. But if it's the future of your program hanging in the balance and it's the guy replacing the guy, then I don't know if there's a too high a price. $20 million. I don't know that that's too high for anybody. But yeah, that's obviously something to take into account. I mean, you don't just write a $20 million check without having to think about it a little bit, unless you're just some like Saudi billionaire or something, I suppose. But this coaching search will be the most interesting coaching search we've seen in a very long time. Just like this offseason will now become the most interesting offseason we've seen in a long time. And everything and anything having to do with college football will be the most interesting it's been in a long time, simply because the playing field just completely shifted underneath our feet.
It's like an earthquake. It's an absolute earthquake. Mr. Guy in the chat room, Saban retiring will leave a void, but a lot, as you just said, is changing next season, so this fits with the 12-team playoff, and who knows with what happens with Florida State, the ACC, and also much more. There's a name that has been dropped that makes some people want to go take a shower in Urban Meyer, who's now been out of college football for a while and doing his thing at Fox, and he seems to sometimes, Paul, reappear. Now, whether or not that's anything Alabama will do or not, whether that's even on the table or not, whether I would think Urban Meyer would be interested in any places like that. But he does seem to be the Undertaker and come out of his casket.
Well, he's going to come for big jobs. I mean, he never when he went to Florida was his first big job after Bowling Green, but Florida had won before. So he's been very strategic and smart about that. And then when he left Florida because of his health problems, and then went to Ohio State, he went to a place that had won before. And so I remember when Jimbo got fired at A&M, that's Urban Meyer, this is A&M, unless he's really nostalgic for 1939, A&M hasn't won before. So if you're going to talk about a job like Michigan State and Urban Meyer, no, Michigan State's not won before. But if you're talking about a job that he would maybe kick the tires on, I would think it would be Alabama. And, he's still younger than Nick Saban, but he's not a young man anymore. But I still think that they're going to want, they just had a guy there for 17 years. The best opportunity to get somebody else there for 17 years, which may never happen in college football like it did before because of the amount of money they're making and the pressure and all these other things. But then they probably need somebody younger than Urban Meyer. Not to mention that Nick Saban was hired to get them out of the baggage, and Urban Meyer brings nothing but it right now.
Yeah.
That's a name you at least throw out there and think about. He's over 15 years younger than Nick Saban. I mean, he's going to turn 60 here soon, but, that's nothing compared to Saban, approaching 80 basically at this point. But, there's the baggage question. There's the desire. There's would Alabama be interested? That's the thing that'll be so fun is to see who are they interested in, who do they go after. There's some obvious candidates, but is there something we're not thinking of? And meanwhile, in this era, every name under the sun is going to be thrown around for that job in some form or fashion. I've already seen the Dion to Bama. Can you imagine what he would do? And there's going to be that easy social media interaction that you can do by throwing Dion's name in the mix. There's going to be Urban Meyer, Dan Lanning, obvious, but he actually makes sense when you think about all the factors. And name a guy. They're going to be named, and the bigger the name, the more they're probably going to be thrown out there, just because it's such a fascinating opening and it's such a coveted opening because of all that comes with it. So this is going to be very fun to see, not only the search, but then whoever that ends up being. Does Oregon have to go back to the drawing board again and go after another coach? And then guess what happens? Depending on who they get, then who does that leave? Is there an ACC school or a Big 12 school or somebody that then loses their coach right before spring ball's about to start? It's just crazy that the fallout that could come from this. But in general, even if they had already handpicked his predecessor and it was the OC or something, you just did one of those natural ascensions, this just on the surface of him leaving the game is interesting enough, but then you take into account all of the other ramifications, and it just makes it the biggest story that we've seen in quite some time in college sports, and one of the biggest stories just in American sports, period. Honestly, I know, college football is not the NFL, but Nick Saban touches all those bases, and a lot of people know who Nick Saban is, and this is going to be, I think, a big-time topic for however long this search ends up lasting.
Yeah, I wonder how it's so many levels, and I do think he will end up in some fashion as a college football analyst.
I think he should. I think he's good at it.
On a set, on game day. Can you imagine the push and shove, the competition between, if that's the case, ESPN and Fox for Nick Saban on their set?
Yeah, it should be huge. I would think that ESPN might have the edge because they have the SEC.
Yeah, sure.
But and look, Lee Corso is not going to be. He's down to one segment a show right now. So Corso as a Corso replacement, he would be great. He'd be really, really, really good as in that studio analyst role. I actually think he'd probably even be good in-game commentating. If he would, I don't think he wants to do that and hop, and go to. To that, but he would
be
still,
good at it.
He would have to hop on a jet somewhere.
But he's,
he could do what Jimmy Johnson's does, which is like for a certain amount of weeks a year.
Show up one day.
Yeah.
You know, go the day before.
With the prep work leading into doing a game as a color analyst or whatever.
Yeah.
Not that he wouldn't already have that information in his head.
A name that I haven't really heard you mention. Maybe you did in some of the odds, but I've left him out when I've kept mentioning, obviously, Dan Lanning and mentioning Sark, but Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about he was at Bama, and I don't know, and I don't, like, here's the thing where I will draw the line, and I really shouldn't because I should just pretend that I know everything like people do, but I really don't know what the feel is like in Tuscaloosa for a guy like Lane Kiffin. But I'm just saying that's a name that you, at least if you're throwing names out there.
It would be stupid not to.
He and Saban, like, they still get along. I mean, so it wasn't like it was.
He's kind of like that your younger brother or cousin that annoys you.
Oh, he's
damn dude. He's doing a hell of a job.
He's fun Uncle Lane.
Yeah.
You know, like that's what he is. You know, so like at this point in his life, he is what he is. You know, you're either gonna like him, you're not gonna like him. But look, the guy's winning at Ole Miss right now, and he's putting together maybe the best team that they've ever had, at least on paper, on the surface. And you know that would be something else if all of a sudden Lane went there and Ole Miss is now searching for a coach. But yeah, that would be a bunch of wild different things scenarios that could happen, because this is going to set off a domino for at least 3 schools, right? More than likely,
unless there's like some. I mean, but there doesn't appear to be anything close to an internal hire. So unless it's like an NFL guy or something, that's the only thing that you would think
like
that
Bill O'Brien came back.
Yeah, like that's the only thing that you would think wouldn't create some type of a college football domino effect, because otherwise, you probably put the highest percentages on it being a college coach. So therefore, it would be a pretty high-ranking college coach at a pretty prestigious program. So that's going to leave that prestigious program, and then who they go get. And, so outside of, them making an outside hire, this is going to have a domino effect in the coaching. And what was a otherwise very quiet coaching carousel for the most part.
Yeah, it was.
It was nothing compared to the last couple of years prior, where you had what felt like a handful of major jobs every year opening up. And certainly, what was it, a couple years ago with like Oklahoma and I don't remember now. My timelines are.
You had Wisconsin,
LSU,
Oklahoma. You had USC,
Notre Dame's hired
LSU.
recently. Yeah. So it's been a lot of big openings, but
maybe even Tennessee. I don't remember if that's the timeline.
No, that's been a little while. But there's been a lot of big openings, and this past year wasn't quite that way, and now it's got the biggest opening imaginable. You got something, Garrett?
I was just thinking, so with Ryan Day's struggles against Michigan, would that hinder him at all of ever becoming a candidate?
I would think so for Bama fans,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I don't know about for the administration and
Correct.
like would they at least kick the tires? I mean, I think you'd probably look at everybody, but I would think for the fans that'd be a no-go. Can't beat Michigan.
That'd be a tough sell.
Georgia,
you know who's happy today? Hugh Freeze and Auburn.
Oh, yeah.
Not that they didn't compete with Alabama. Milroe had to throw 4th and 30 or whatever it was to even win that game. But Auburn has always been right there. I mean, with Malzahn, with who am I missing? Chizik, and obviously with Freeze in his first year. The Auburn Tigers and Opelika, Alabama, they're all probably not licking their chops, but they're probably that's one thing out of their way. No matter who their head coach will be.
If Nick Saban is gone, to stop giving them headaches individually, but their little brother systems complex never going to go away.
Everybody's fan base, if you had to play LSU fans.
Everybody in America has little brother syndrome when it comes to Alabama. Auburn just has it the most because they're the biggest rival and the closest proximity. So, I mean, even if you've won something like Auburn has or LSU has or anybody, Alabama's the program. I mean, they're the 2 greatest coaches who ever coached in this game were Alabama head coaches.
So wait, tomorrow, is it Harbaugh's decision that comes down that just blows up college football?
I was going to say, I was thinking about this during the break, and now we're getting back around to it. But, yeah, I mean, there is the possibility that the head coach is a national champion, Michigan Wolverines, goes and gets an NFL job. And, you talk about going from, 30 to 100 here with just this Nick Saban news. I mean, that would take you well over 100 if Harbaugh jumped into the mix and Michigan suddenly became open. And with a second National Signing Day a month away, with now Alabama's players free to roam, basically, and then you were to throw Michigan into that mix as well. I know they haven't necessarily recruited all of the industry stars like to the same level, but they've still done very well for themselves, and they've won the national title. And so you suddenly take those two programs about as big as it possibly can get in every category imaginable. And, that would – I mean, Saban alone in Alabama, that's enough, I think, to get us through these next few weeks. But there is that possibility that Jim Harbaugh could be next. Yeah, and so, man alive, if that were to happen, then we're really in for a treat. I think we already got blessed today, but if Harbaugh were to then make the move, I think that would be another blessing for college football folks.
Two of the biggest programs, with all due respect to 5 or 7 others in college football history, with Michigan and then also – Alabama.
Less than that.
Here's another. Kyle Visser, this has been in the works for a few days. Do you think there's already someone hired or offered? I don't know that. I'll give you an update on Jalen Milroe. And I hate this for the Campbell Award, but he's not even going to go to the banquet tonight now because of the news. I'm sure they turned that flight around, or maybe, I don't know if they ever landed, but we were going to have him, and then all of a sudden now he's not going to even be there, which I hate for the program in the event. But understandable considering the circumstances of today.
By the way, Garrett, we'll do the Baylor's of basketball news here a second ago, but this is Ross Dellinger's tweet. Fun story. Spoke to a group of conference administrators this morning here at the NCAA convention in Phoenix. After Phoenix, I head to a ski trip this weekend in Park City. Oh, I told them, I'm sure Nick Saban will retire him on the slopes. So at least he got it. And there was a picture of a glass of whiskey there, but so there you go. For college football writers, this is.
Yeah, they're not a lot of them. Like Bruce Feldman, I had a back and forth with him. He was going to be on today. He's got a lot of people came back from the Sugar Bowl and or Houston and have had a lot of problems with being sick. With all the people congregating, he's going to be on with us perhaps tomorrow because he just didn't have enough voice, but. I'm not sure. There's a lot of people working deep into the night now with Nick Saban. Well, if he's now joining us again, Nick Saban announced his retirement, told the team earlier today he is retiring as the head coach at Alabama.
Well, I mean, that's just covering college football these days, is you can't really pick a safe spot to go anywhere or not feel like there's a chance news could break, whether it be a recruiting thing or even a head coaching thing. But, yeah, that's funny that it worked out that way for Ross, and I'm sure he's going to enjoy a nice – glass of whiskey when the time comes, if not right now, as he probably is doing what everybody's doing, is just flocking to social media to see all the reactions and to see all the buzz and just the talk about what is a massive story. And yeah, it's going to be really fun to see the next few days what this all kind of looks like. I mean, once Alabama collects itself and kind of gets what they want to in order, and they release something to say what they're going to end up doing as far as just the coaching search and all of that, as they start to kick that off, and everybody else signs their coaches to brand new contracts to try and ward off Alabama potentially. And yeah, it's going to be a very interesting next couple of days.
I remember when I asked Brett McMurphy yesterday, do you think we're going to have a normal football season, off season? And of course, he blasted that away. We do have breaking news with Baylor men's basketball.
Yeah,
just for a second.
I will say this. Okay, yeah. Let's go to Danquan Grimes.
Danquan Grimes went to Kilgore College, committed to Baylor. He's stuck behind a lot of people at that position, is not getting playing time. So the young man, Danquan Grimes, is now entered. Danquan Grimes has now entered the portal. Good luck to him. We enjoyed the fact when he was on the show with us. Hell of a player at Kilgore, but just hasn't found the time at Baylor.
Do you have anything on Grimes, Paul?
No, he's like the 11th player now on a really good team. So, he's got to go play somewhere he can. He's a good player, but, I mean, Baylor's at that kind of thing.
I did want to make mention, though, while we're talking Baylor here for a second, that Grayson Grunhafer also passed along that he talked to Alex Foster, the defensive line commit, and he told Grayson he is ready to sign with Baylor next month despite a late push by Texas.
Kid from Mississippi, right?
He's a young man from Mississippi that's been committed for quite some time. I guess there's still time for things to change, but you would think with the Bo Davis news today that could play into their favor, being a defensive lineman. I don't know that to be sure, but I would think that could probably play in their favor. But that is probably not that big of a deal for Texas if it were to hold, because I don't think you can say anything with certainty anymore. But if it were to hold, then not the worst thing in the world for Texas, but that is a major deal for Baylor to get a kid like that.
Yeah, he's a big boy. He's a dude. And again, a lot of times they might get on somebody early or schools like that, and then here come the vultures, and I mean that in a complimentary way, that say, okay, now it's our turn, and a lot of times you then lose people. Jade Barron, great player. Murphy at Texas, both of them very heavily involved. In fact, Dottie Barron, was he not committed to Baylor?
Signed
with Baylor.
He signed and got out of his NIL to go sign with Texas in the spring.
Here's a question that was asked, and this is like by 50 different people. We asked this, and we brought this up earlier, and on the chat room, please respond as well. How much, not so much of today's college football led to today's decision, but how many years did it speed up Saban's retirement?
I'm sure maybe a little bit. I mean, like, I think more of it was like, what else? What is he going to do? Like, he's made all this money. Like, he's 72. I mean, like, that's the thing.
You want to be able to enjoy a little bit, huh?
Yeah, I mean, like, he's 72. Like, this was coming in the next couple years, more than likely. And again, when you're 72, like, look, Pete Carroll retired today too. There's the same age, which I've got a tweet on that's pretty interesting here in a second on another Pete Carroll and Nick Saban connection. But there are, maybe it did a little bit, but it seemed like he was pretty well adapted to it. And he is not at a place that he was going to ever have to go fight for it. Like, at no point is Nick Saban going to walk into a room and say, hey, you guys are screwing me here.
Yeah.
Like, that's never going to happen at Alabama.
I mean, I don't think he's going to coach for another 10 years as it was anyways, so it was coming whether the rules had changed or not. But I do think that retiring now as opposed to maybe 3 or 4 years down the line, I could absolutely see where it had an effect. I mean, compared to what it was just a few years ago to where it is now, and having to fool with, NIL and all these different things. I don't have to rattle them off for everybody out there. You know what all's going on right now, and just how much of a headache it is for just fans of the sport to follow along with and get frustrated with at times, much less a guy so heavily involved at the highest level of it when it comes to all of those various topics. So, I mean, hard to say for sure, and probably won't know until he speaks on that himself, which I'm sure he will in some big exclusive interview at some point in time. But I think that's certainly – I don't think that would be the driving force. I don't even think that might even be top 3. But I think if you're just putting it all together and you're like tipping the scales one way or the other, that's certainly just the messiness of it all could tip you into, I don't need to do this anymore. I've won my championships. I don't want to go start bidding for the next quarterback. I'm just tired of this. I could absolutely see that being the case.
It's not that they can't build a roster, but it's different. It's much different. So here's Brett McMurphy, and this has always been a stat that always like, wow. Since Nick Saban became the head coach at Alabama, 54 different SEC head coaches, not including anyone who was interim.
Yeah, that's wild.
54, which is about 3 per year on average.
Yeah, and he pretty much is the guy who put all those 54 guys out of work. I mean, that like they were chasing. They were chasing him. He put those 54 dudes out of work because everybody in that conference was chasing him. All right, here's another one. The connection. This is from Steve Sarkisian. Who are his 2 mentors? Pete Carroll and Nick Saban, both retiring on the same day. And look, Nick Saban is the GOAT college football coach, and we're more of a college football show, but I do not want to get lost in the shovel, at least from my opinion, that Pete Carroll's one of the great football coaches that's ever lived as well. So a Super Bowl and a national championship.
Yeah, not many. There's the Jimmy Johnson connection about winning a Super Bowl and also winning a college football national championship too. Casey Poe from Lindale High School, signed with Alabama. 5-star offensive lineman on Twitter. Wow, is his reaction to that and the news from today. We are now joined by Oklahoma State running back Ollie Gordon. Ollie will be and is in Tyler for the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award, one of the 5 finalists today. Ollie, thank you for your time. There's a great tradition of running backs at Oklahoma State. You've continued that. How much has that meant to you to be a part of that lineage and tradition?
It's meant a lot to me, just being in the same conversation as all those backs that all great, everybody loves them. So, to be in the same conversation as them, it's huge.
Ollie, when you started getting the ball, the season started getting going for Oklahoma State. You guys had struggled a little bit early on, but then when the offense started flowing through the running game, it really changed everything. Could you feel like what was the change that you felt when this thing really got going in the right direction for you guys?
I just felt us working together more as a team and us just worrying about us and not worrying about anything outside of us. So, all the noise, all the stuff people were talking on social media, we wouldn't really pay that attention. We just stuck together and, stayed true to us.
Ollie, just what kind of started your football dreams? Where did that all begin for you? Who put the ball in your hand originally and kind of helped guide you to where you are today?
My mom and my aunt helped with that. They threw me in for football. And funny thing, I was at practice picking flowers, so, I had to stop that for a little bit. But those two did it for sure.
Ollie, we had a couple of guys that cover Oklahoma State on the show and analysts of football players, and that you hit the line of scrimmage in a matter of maybe 3 steps at your highest speed. And that also then means arm tackles or whatever are not going to work against you. Did you even have that when you were at Trinity in high school?
In high school, I played quarterback, so, it was more of like a quarterback power type of thing. So, yeah, it was similar, but I didn't really play running back in high school.
Ollie, what is better as a running back? Since you're there for the Earl Campbell Award, he's a dude who ran by people and through people, very famously through people. You are the same kind of running back when you can do either. What is more satisfying, running past somebody or running through them?
I would say running through, without a doubt. Running through is way better than running past.
Ollie, you're a bit young. You didn't get to see Earl when he was at his peak, but what do you know when you think of the name Earl Campbell and you hear that name?
Just one of the all-time top backs to ever, just touch a football. You hear his name a lot. You see film from what he used to do, and this is great.
Ollie, you mentioned playing quarterback at high school, but the fact that you also were a hammer with what you did. There was a game, and I don't know if it was against South Lake Carroll or whoever, where you had maybe 50-plus carries. Is there ever
that was Allen.
Against Allen. Has there ever been a game where you felt like you were gassed and had too many carries?
No, in the moment, you're just playing for the team, playing for the win. It's never nothing too crazy. So, you don't even think about the carries or the yards in the moment. It's more of just playing with your team.
You're there in Tyler for the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award, named after one of the greatest running backs at every level in the history of the game. What does it mean to you to be there?
No, it means a lot. Like I said, all the great people that came through before for this award, it's just great. And see them exceeding at the next level, it's a huge thing.
What do we as people outside the Oklahoma State program not know or understand about Mike Gundy?
No, he's really a great guy. He's not just a football coach. He's a people person. He cares about your life before he cares about you as a football player.
Ollie, do you guys talk much about Alan Bowman and his age at this point? I mean, how big was that to see that he got another year and will be back in the fold for you guys next season?
It was huge. Last year we only had 1 year with him, and for him to get another year back, I feel like it's great. I feel like he could take over the team even more now and become an even bigger leader than what he was this past year.
Well, look, he's got an MBA from Michigan. Does he give you real estate, insurance advice, stock tips? What do you talk about with Alan Bowman?
Alan's like a big brother to me. He tries to teach me the way of life in and outside of football.
Jalen, if you don't mind me, Ollie, if you don't mind me asking, one of the finalists was Jalen Milroe, and obviously today the news of Nick Saban is retiring at Alabama. When I say Nick Saban, I know Mike Gundy's your guy, and he's great. But when I think of Nick Saban, or when you think of Nick Saban, what do you think of?
One of the greatest college coaches to ever coach, for sure.
I mentioned being a part of the finalists. What would it mean to you if your name is the actual winner tonight, and what will your reaction be?
It would be huge, honestly, and I'd be shocked. It's a bunch of great players here tonight, honestly. So I'd be happy and excited.
Ollie, thanks for your time. I know there's a lot going on. Thank you very much for joining our show. Good luck tonight, and we appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Ollie Gordon, running back at Oklahoma State. Thanks to Cindy Smoak making that happen, who runs the event, and getting us Ollie Gordon today as they have the banquet tonight in Tyler.
Yeah, nice to talk to him, and I know that they're very busy getting everything in order, doing a lot of interviews and whatnot, so glad he could take a little time for us, and glad that we'll be able to talk about him in college football for one more season next year with Oklahoma State and what is shaping up to be a pretty salty team on paper with quarterback coming back. He's coming back. A lot of other various players on both sides of the ball coming back. So they're setting up pretty well, and a nice rebound for Mike Gundy. Just from, the standpoint of a couple years ago, you had that heartbreaking loss, and then, I don't even like the year following up, not much to really get too excited about. And then this year, getting their themselves, I should say, back into the Big 12 championship and just running into a really good Texas team. That was a good run, and beating Oklahoma as well. Ollie Gordon winning various awards like the Doak Walker already. So, yeah, it's a good time there in Stillwater, and we'll see. Maybe he'll add another one tonight. Remains to be seen, but nice to talk to him, and hopefully run into him, I guess, in Vegas this summer when they do the Big 12 Media Days. I don't know how all that's going to work, but you would imagine he'd be one of the big ticket draws when you talk about returning players in conference next year. He's right there near the top of the list as far as star power goes.
All right, thank you again, Ollie Gordon, Oklahoma State running back with us on 365 Sports. Again, the news today, without question, is the Nick Saban retirement, which came down a little bit before 4:30 today. It has shocked everybody. 7 national titles. You wonder, is there anyone in the game? You hear about who could be there. Dabo has 2. Kirby Smart has 2. And whoever else might eventually gather up a few of their own. And how this is going to have a domino effect in college football. Because with that job filled with Nick Saban, that was not going to get many others that were going to be, whoa, Alabama's open, that might affect other bigger schools and who they look at to replace the legend and the greatest of all time. When we come back around the corner, Paul Catalina and his top 5 and more, this is 365 Sports.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs. Knowing you, that's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
Cars priced right, both day and night. At Richard Car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. At Richard Car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. At Richard Car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. At Richard Car in Waco, Texas.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
One of the great things about anything live when it comes to broadcasting, or if you were like somewhere at a restaurant eating and then everyone starts to look at their phone because of the Nick Saban news and retirement. Mr. Guy, and this was part of when I heard or started to see that Saban would retire. He's not running from anything other than just it's time. But now that you're Texas and Oklahoma entering the SEC, at least, I mean, he's not there. Doesn't mean Alabama's still not there. They are with how they react to this. But it does for not just Texas, Oklahoma, but many people, at least there's a sliver, a crack that's in the door.
Oh, yeah, if you're Ole Miss right now, if you're anybody, you're celebrating. But, it's going to be different anyways next year without divisions. So it's not like you had that log jam in the West of how do we possibly win this thing any given year. It will, in theory, now you don't even have to worry about it. But in theory, it's a clear path, but then again, if they go and hire Dan Lanning, is it? But then what is is Georgia now the top dog that you continuously run into? It's still going to be difficult no matter which way you slice it, but it's just different in what appears to be a less difficult way. When you take the greatest coach of all time at arguably the greatest program of all time and you shake that up after 2 decades of pretty as close to dominance as you'll find in the sports history. Yeah, that's going to clear some things up on the roadway to a championship or just competing that otherwise have been different now for a very long time. Certainly for all the coaches coaching right now. I don't know if you go up and down the list off the top of my head, but I don't think any of these head coaches in the SEC know a life without Nick Saban as the Alabama head coach as far as their own tenures go.
Yeah,
right?
with 54 of them leaving, there's been like 100 of them that have been
brand new territory for everybody. But yeah, I would think Hugh Freeze and Lane Kiffin and Brian Kelly and so on and so forth. And now you add in Brent Venables and Steve Sarkisian. I think they're circling the – there's an emergency meeting tonight. There's a big – teleprompter with the Alabama roster on it, and there's all sorts of other graphics to look at and to digest in terms of how everybody reacts to this. But it does seem like the big roadblock is at least somewhat cleared out of the way for a lot of the other schools. For
One
sure.
thing to mention, as good and as great as he has been, it is still a program that has 16 legitimate national titles. Now there were holes in that stretch too, from what they had obviously with Bear Bryant, the one was Gene Stallings, and then Saban. They have some back in the day, but that's back in the day. But it's not a program that is like all of a sudden gotten hot like Clemson did, or even Georgia had a long, long drought between 1980 and what they've done, or some other schools too.
But there's not a 100%. Okay,
No.
If Nick Saban's there, there's a 100% chance they're going to be competitive and they're going to be in the
For
mix.
as long as he's there.
100% chance they're probably winning 10 games or more.
Yep.
You know, or 99.9% chance they're going to win 10 games or more every season. They are probably going. There's not going to be any other school that's better positioned to continue to do that than Alabama. But when you are making a change, there is that little dip of a just uncertainty that, yeah, this guy seems like the surefire or the perfect fit or whatever. But we've seen a lot of those, and you just never know when you make a change. So, yeah, this is going to be quite the offseason when it comes to Alabama and just the newness of it all, whoever that ends up being leading the charge.
All right, Emory Winter is doing his magic with the top 5 and also working on 365 Sports tonight every weeknight on the local CW at 10:30.
All right, would you like to know how Auburn fans reacted? There's Toomer's Corner right now.
That is not after a win.
That is
now.
tonight. That is right now.
It looks like it's snowing in Opelika, Alabama. I got to get a text to my buddy Eric because I know he's a huge Auburn fan, but he loves both schools. It's kind of weird. But reaction, he's actually in Birmingham right now. Yeah, Alabama just TP'd Toomer's Corner, right, and went nuts with it. So, Paul, what are you doing with your top 5?
Top 5 Nick Saban replacements.
All right.
It was something else, and then an H-bomb got dropped on the news cycle today, so I figure it would be silly to not pivot, and Emory did great work in getting that ready. I'm glad he's here and not in a stupid class like he was last semester, where this would have maybe been a problem.
There's a lot of talk in the chat. Wish we could sometimes get to more of it than we do, but we do appreciate you there and also know you're there too.
What, do you want to roll through a couple of them, or do you have any set to the side? We got a couple minutes.
Well, one of the questions was the number of national titles, and about half of them that the SEC has since 1996, and of course a bunch of. We've mentioned that. Do not think that Drinkwitz will follow Saban. That would be tough to be first behind the GOAT. Now, Eli Drinkwitz is a name that. What he's done at Missouri, who knows? I don't know the connections to all of that, but I doubt it.
Well, yeah, there's connections, but yeah, I mean, whoever that is, to your point about whoever follows the GOAT, I mean, they're going to have mighty big shoes to fill, and that's what I was kind of saying earlier. Is are they unfillable in some ways, living up to what he left? But yeah, I mean, there's somebody out there that's going to be ready, willing, and able to embrace that challenge and all of the benefits that you get with it. I mean, as much pressure as there is, there's also. Is anybody more well-equipped to compete year in and year out with the facilities and the money and the fans and the support and the passion and all that than Alabama? I don't think so. So for as much as that pressure might be a little scary, there's also the advantages that you have with being at a program like that. So, yeah, it's I've seen a lot of names mentioned and hadn't thought about Drinkwitz necessarily, but I can only imagine the cell phones blowing up between agents and coaches and so forth right now all across the country.
Guck, know it? Do you know it? Do you know it? Lanning, Sark, Kiffin, Dabo, and Norvell. We've put up some of the list that other national writers have also put up in Vegas, who have put up as well.
That's a solid 5.
Yeah,
Lanning, Sark,
not a
Kiffin,
bad way to
Dabo,
start
Norvell.
right there.
Let's not run out a lot of 5-name things right now, guys.
Oh yeah.
Let's maybe hold off on that for 2 more minutes.
Well, let's just go to it, I guess.
Yeah.
oh, God, I didn't realize. That's
Paul
right.
Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
These are in no particular order because I had to do this on the fly during the show. So, we'll just do it, and we'll discuss it now since it's here. Top 5 Nick Saban replacements. Number 5, Dan Lanning, probably the first guy they've got to call. And this is someone, if you're going to bank on a decade, at Alabama, the youngest guy available would probably be the best one. He's had 2 great seasons at Oregon. He's in the Saban tree. He's in the Kirby Smart tree. He's an SEC, guy. And Oregon is one of the best places to pluck your coach from, apparently. They are good at growing them at Oregon. It would really suck for Ducks fans to have to go through this one more time, especially with someone who had so much more potential than maybe anybody they've had there, since Mark Helfrich or Chip Kelly. I mean, like, just this is would really, really stink. But this is the hottest young coach in college football, even maybe over another guy on this list. But Dan Lanning's probably the first guy you're going to call.
I would think he's one of those first calls. That's an absolute certainty. And he's done an excellent job in a very short amount of time at Eugene. They've already gone and grabbed Dylan Gabriel. Their quarterback room seems set for the next few years. Their roster is in good shape, and there's a lot of excitement. And they had a fantastic season that was only really derailed by the team that finished second in the entire country there with the better run that Washington had and those two head-to-head wins. But beyond that, yeah, I mean, Oregon's in really good shape. And today, not necessarily the worst day for Ducks fans, but whatever mood you're in is a little lesser than it was when you started the day or the afternoon, because you now have this thought in your head of, oh, geez, it's actually here. It's not what if Saban retires one day? What then will happen to Dan Lanning or to whoever you want to mention at other schools? Now it's actually, no, he is retiring, and what does now happen with Dan Lanning? Yeah.
It's
excuse me.
It's easier to say no to Texas A&M, right? If Texas A&M calls Dan Lanning, it's way easier to say no to them. And no offense to A&M, but
bro, they're not even the same universe. Come on now.
15 national championships different, and the last one's 39. So I'm trying to be diplomatic about this here, but okay. Look, I know A&M has a bunch of money, blah 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 blah, but like Alabama calls you, that's a different thing altogether. That's
concrete, not pebbles.
No, look, that's being in a Scorsese movie as opposed to like one with Tom Sizemore. Like, it's just different.
I mean, A&M wants to think that they're the same as Alabama, and maybe they are money-wise. They're close to that, but in every other category, I mean, it's not even a knock. It's just the truth. It's not comparable. It's not the same. It's money in the state of Texas, but other than that, it's a very full trophy case, and it's one that's not so filled up. So that's one thing to turn down A&M. It's another thing to turn and any other job. It's not an A&M centric thing here, but name another job basically. And there's. You were saying that it was 4 to 5. I'm thinking like they're top 1, at worst maybe 2, and you'd have to make a really great argument for why they're not top like number 3. You know what I mean? So that's where that job is. It's just on a different level, almost up to its lonesome.
Yeah. Number 4. I've forgotten who this is. Lane Kiffin. Look, he's doing well in the SEC right now. Again, another apple off the Saban tree, and he was maybe the first. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but he was the first out of the Nick Saban coach rehab internship program. Was he the one who really kind of helped rehabilitate who he was?
Yeah, he had his own rehabilitation center for coaches.
So he was the first one out of it. He went from Saban, then he went to FAU, and then of course now at Ole Miss. So he has reestablished himself as a quality college head football coach, and he knows how Saban did things, and he can put his own little spin on it. He's clearly working NIL well at Ole Miss, a place that is going for it after never having won the SEC in their history. And it would absolutely suck for them to lose the coach after they've just got all these big time commitments, especially out of the portal. But Lane makes a lot of sense if you want to keep the same kind of vibe and maybe innovate a little bit differently. I don't want to say innovate past Saban, but put some new wrinkles in things.
Well, he went from getting fired in embarrassing fashion by USC to months later joining up with Alabama and helping analyze their offense and then become an assistant coach there. I don't know if he was the very first rehab project, but he's the first one that I remember, and that was well over 10 years ago, and it has become a thing ever since then where we've seen a litany of names, whether it's just former head coaches or guys who had issues or whatever.
Bill O'Brien.
Yeah, I mean, so I think Lane may have been the one to kick that off. I just can't say with 100% certainty, but he knows the Tuscaloosa area and the program and the SEC and all the things that you would seemingly want a candidate to know and kind of have a grip on. But, I don't know how he's viewed as far as being the face of the program by the Alabama faithful. You know what I mean? Because he is a little bit outside the box. Does that ruffle feathers for some, or is that something that you embrace and you think would be great? I think that's what it could come down to, also depending on your other candidates as well. But I don't know, just the one thing I do feel very strongly about is he strikes me as the type of guy that he let me know, and he'd leave in 2 seconds if he got that opportunity. Like I don't doubt for a second that he'd be like, "Yep, I'm taking it. Ole Miss, you understand. See you guys later. We'll meet you down the road." That's how he strikes me, and so I could totally see that.
Yeah, there's not sentimentality.
Mike Loxley was another guy.
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting one. He's another, he's a Saban guy, and that would
as
be
far as the rehab tour.
But number 3, I wouldn't put it past him to interview him for this. He's done well at Maryland, but maybe not the guy that they want. Number 3, Kalen DeBoer, wins everywhere. And, just came off of playing in the national championship game. It was a 14-1 season, shown he can recruit in a lot of different ways. If you want, and he's got a little bit of the Saban vibe to me, where he's direct and he's, kind of steady. Like that seems to me to be his vibe. I mean, obviously nobody's Nick Saban, but he's got a little bit of that in him. And again, a hot coach right now in Kalen DeBoer, who just wins everywhere he goes. So if you're Alabama and you're talking about producing wins, well, this guy has never done anything but that, whether it is at the FCS level, at Fresno State, or now at Washington.
Yeah, I mean, he's been coaching for close to 10 years at 3 different spots as a head coach and has never lost more than 3 games in a season. So he's been pretty special wherever he's been and pretty effective. And, I don't know of any sort of connections like some of these other guys have. He's not an Alabama assistant, gone to greener pastures. He's not a Southern guy. He's, not an SEC guy. So I don't know how much those things matter. I think if you're Alabama, you're just trying to get the best coach, period, whoever checks as many boxes as you like. But, I mean, he is a hot name, and he's very good, obviously, based on the track record wherever he's been. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's a name worth mentioning. Not sure if Alabama goes down that road, but if you're anybody in America with a coach that's worthwhile, you're on high alert, and certainly that would be Washington after the run that they just wrapped up.
Yeah, by the way, Alabama 5-star wide receiver Ryan Williams has decommitted from Alabama. He was supposed to sign in February, so there you go.
There's going to be maybe even a dozen or so of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just because they're going to play for Saban. They're not going to the school; they're going to the coach. That's what they're doing because the money's going to be about the same everywhere. When it comes down to it. Number 2. This one is probably less likely, given the trajectory of the last couple of years and the way that he is not in favor of the way that new college football works. But he is an alum, and it would be he still makes a lot of money. He is an alum, and he has won, and I'm sure he could maybe be potentially convinced to change his ways going to the SEC, and maybe he is slowly doing that. They've recruited some portal players in this cycle. They haven't gotten any yet, which is means they haven't probably tried as hard as everyone else has. But Dabo Swinney is someone that, look, I don't think you can completely take out of this because of his connections to the Gene Stallings era Alabama teams and, the success he's had as a coach and the fact that he's still a young guy.
Yeah, he'll definitely continue to be mentioned. I just don't know what the attractiveness level is at this point. He's still a great coach. He's still a national championship winning head coach, but I think maybe he shot himself a bit in the foot these last couple of years, as much his own doing as anyone else's that had nothing to do necessarily with even wins or losses. But, that's a name that's been out there for a very long time. I mean, probably for, close to a decade. I mean, would the Dabo talk have been out there?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of when that really would have first kicked off with Clemson.
They started winning, It's not a decade.
I mean, close to it. So yeah, that's been out there for a while. Not sure if he'd still be number 2 at this point.
I mean, this
definitely
seen no particular
right,
order,
but have definitely seen some Alabama folks in the past. Give or take what random opinions are that feel like he's not a fit anymore. So we'll see, obviously. And yeah, that's a name that has to be mentioned.
Again, we don't know. He can change his mind on how he likes the transfer portal, NIL. It's not like Clemson's not doing some of it, but at Alabama, my goodness, you are the start of it. And so that's something to be taken into consideration.
They're doing NIL. They're just not doing transfer portal.
Right.
Like he's decided that 50% of this is fine, but the other, that's the weird part to me, that it would seem that Dabo would be less for paying players and more against taking ones from other schools. But, Sarah. Number 1, Sark. Mentored, he was, and he is probably of the coaches that have come out of that Nick Saban coach rehab program, and I don't mean this as a pun in any way for Steve Sarkisian, because he did, have addiction issues that he had to overcome in his life. But Steve Sarkisian has probably, hit the highest high in that he was just in the college football playoff and brought Texas out of the desert and back into prominence after 14, 15 years of wandering. So he's been there. They know him. He built Texas into an SEC team really fast, the way that they are, because as they transition, they're bigger and faster, and they are built like an SEC team right now. And so this one would make a lot of sense. Maybe not the number one, because also it's going to be really super hard, even for Alabama, to wrestle somebody away from Texas. Just as it was hard every time Texas was open before Sark got the job for the Texas fans to, wrestle with the idea of Nick Saban not wanting to come there. It was always like,
I remember Terry was around looking at real estate.
Yeah, all those things. But that's going to be like the go one way or the other is going to be tough, because do you leave Texas to go to Alabama? Not like you wouldn't leave Alabama to go to Texas necessarily because of where they are. So I don't know, but this still would make a ton of sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's a logical connection there. It's the biggest job in college football. So I don't care if it's Texas or guys at Michigan or guys at USC or guys at Oklahoma. If Alabama comes calling, you're at least taking that phone call. Now, Sark's got it about as good as you can get it. I can't imagine that he would be enticed to leave, because it's not like he has some super duper connection to Tuscaloosa. He's a BYU guy. He's not a dyed in the wool down south Alabama alum kind of a deal, and he's at one of those top 5 spots arguably in America. So, yeah, you wouldn't think that there'd be enough to sway him that way. But, I mean, if Alabama comes calling, everybody's at least picking up the phone. So I'm sure he'll get a phone call. Everybody on the list will probably get a phone call, or their agents will get a phone call. I wouldn't sweat it much if I'm a Texas fan right now, because I'm not sure he'd be the number one guy. But you certainly have to believe he'd be in the mix and in that top group of conversations. And if not, then I'm eager to learn who would be or who is, and to kind of see where Sark is situated in that whole thing. And best believe by the time we get here tomorrow, maybe this doesn't come to fruition, but I'd imagine we got a couple coaches who've already sent out their graphics to the Twitter team of reiterating, I love it here and I don't want to go anywhere else. I just wonder who's going to be the first one to do that.
Yeah, and some schools might lock their guy up by the end of the day.
Can Mark Stoops do this again?
Do you know that who the first rehab project for Saban actually was when analysts and all that stuff started? Mike Groh, who was at Virginia, was the offensive coordinator, I think, and got fired by his dad. And he now has been in the NFL for a long, long time. There was a story on CBS Sports, Meet Patient Zero, back in 2009 when Groh had just been dismissed at Virginia. And he and Saban sat down and talked about it. And there we are, the start of the tree of the rehabilitation center at Alabama. Phil Bennett is locked in for tomorrow. Retired stockbroker. I think I saw you mention that. I've reached out to Tim Brando, and we'll have others on the day after the Nick Saban news. And Craig's the one that was able to kind of catch our attention. And, man, have you all had fun in the chat room. Emery Winter, Jack McKenzie, thanks to Garrett Ross for weaving in and out. Thanks to everybody who's been a part of making today happen, including every day the great list of sponsors we have on this show. Tonight, 10:30, 365 Sports tonight on the local CW. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, I'm David Smoak. Back tomorrow, can't wait, 3 o'clock. Good night on 365 Sports.